Howdy, folks. Your host, JJ Vance here, host of Operation GCD, and perhaps more notably, not the vice president. Welcome back, folks, to the interwebs for another Fridaze, along with my co-host, Nick, host of the Occult Rejects. Nick, how you doing, sir?
What up? What's going on? How are you? Happy Fridays.
Oh, same to you. Just enjoying my normal, terror PTSD events surrounding Buffalo Jared Revisa, my former stalker and current transpocalypse multi-state homicidal maniac.
Yo, that is crazy. I was telling JJ, you're never gonna get into it now, but even with some of the stories I had with motherfuckers I met in prison, I was like, yo, we really should do a show just on the weird, sick fucks we've come across personally.
I totally agree, and that's kind of where I'm starting. I like that idea because that's kind of where I'm at with my new Patreon series. We're starting off as the Sundays with Operation GCD Sundays, doing kind of what you're describing. These weird, you've obviously we've shared a lot of stories offline, and you've encountered a lot of strange tales and high weirdness yourself, and it seems to be a trend in my life that I've learned to live with and make a joke out of it.
It's like maybe you had to go through that shit to get to where like we are the type of person anyway today. Maybe all that exposure brings you to like conspiracy theorists.
Yeah, I wouldn't disagree with that because serving 20 years in the military, in the Air Force, and tonight's guest is also an Air Force veteran, but serving 20 years in the military, especially the 5 or 6 accumulated years I spent in combat, I learned a couple of things that first of all, you got to keep a sense of humor in some dark times, and those folks that keep a sense of humor in dark times, there's a reason why they have that sense of humor. It's been a collective issue for to maintain that. That's what I'm saying. So much like myself and yourself, you have to kind of roll the punches and make a joke out of it is what I'm getting at.
I mean, you kind of actually had like opposite ends of the polarity. You worked for the government, and I was an inmate to the government.
And yet we were somehow both prisoners.
Yeah, I guess. Yeah, I wasn't even looking at it like that, but no, it's like, I was in and you were out, so we even have both. Angles. That's to look at.
Yeah, I connected with one of my dudes from I grew up with in high school years, probably 8-10 years ago. We had reconnected after about 15 or so years, and he had done a little bit of time at one point in time, and we were comparing our experiences, his and like 18 months or something like that, or whatever, in a state situation, not quite like yours, but. We were comparing the, just the general sense of being in those environments, especially in a deployed environment versus that. So, and it's not that dissimilar. But I got Operation GCD Sundays coming up 8 p.m. this Sundays on my Patreon. Links are going to be in the show notes here tonight. And I got The Curse of Robert the Doll, and Lord of Mercy, that thing keeps cursing me. But then, of course, the following Sunday, Buffalo Jared. The legend of Buffalo Jared Revisa. So on these notes, should be some good tales. Again, I like to make some gallows style dark humor in these circumstances. Otherwise, I don't know how you live with it. You got to make a joke out of it, in my opinion.
Yeah, I have to say, I can tell you're starting to enjoy making memes recently, or you're starting to enjoy this AI stuff over here with these images. You're starting to get good at it. I've noticed.
Yeah. Yes, sir. I appreciate that. I'm on a real kick of Muppetizing, folks. I've even Muppetized myself a number of times.
Shit's hilarious.
So anything, before we welcome our guests here, anything you got plug in here tonight with Occult Rejects? You've been working on a couple of projects or any shows you got popping off here?
I do have this weekend. We do have Ed Cassis and the Tridactyl finally dropping.
Yeah, that was a good combo. Really enjoyed that.
Yes. Yeah, that was interesting. Then we have Soul Oakman also. Next week we do have what do we got? We got a Gematria show dropping that we did with AJ from Bold Don't Lie show, and TJ was on from Contemporary Problems. And yeah, we got that. And Laurel Canyon with Julianne Colby's dropping next week too. That's actually an old one. We did that a while ago. I forgot to drop it. And then when I noticed, I was like, fuck, the rotation was so far ahead. I was like, damn it, this shit's dropping like 3 months after the fact now. But yeah, got that coming out. And I think you're on for that too, right?
Yeah, I was listening to what you were saying, and then someone asked me what GCD meant, and I wrote just GCD again, like a real dum-dum.
Well, it's Friday.
Now, that Cash is Tridactyls one, that was interesting. Some thought-provoking materials, whether or not you agree with his conclusions or not. But yeah, Julie and I had an epic conversation tonight on O.J. Simpson did not do it, the great O.J. debate, which I say that facetiously. We were just having a conversation. She was bringing up her points because, she was born after the event, right, after the murders. So, she had an interesting perspective. Unlike me, I remember watching the Bronco chase, standing in a mall.
Yeah, I watched all that shit on TV, bro.
Yeah, dude. I remember they paused my Spanish class sophomore year to watch the verdict. Miss Wolford's Spanish class sophomore year to watch the verdict. So these were bigger events than Apollo 11. More people tuned into the verdict than Apollo 11 launch. So it's interesting. So without further ado, our guest this evening, Charles. Greetings, sir. Host of Eyes and Ears podcast and co-host of the AM Wake Up.
Yes, appreciate it. Thanks for having me, man. Good to be here. Hello to the chat. What's going on, guys?
Appreciate you joining us. As I was saying, fellow Air Force veteran, much like myself, you did some time, and
that's right.
So
everybody here put some time in for the government in one form or another. That's for sure.
Right.
That's for sure.
So, what will you introduce some of your podcasts and kind of what got you here hosting this podcast here?
Yeah, man, definitely. So, as you said. Oh yeah, no. As you said, yeah, I do AM Wakeups Mondays with Steve Poikinen. We just kind of talk about whatever, the news, etc. Anarchy based. The AM Wake Up crew is very anarchy based. We get into just self-sufficient people doing for self remedies, self-help, things like that. But talk about the news, all that good stuff. Eyes and Ears, my own show. I just talk about whatever. I had you on for one of my episodes, which was awesome. Yourself and Heidi. JJ, we were just talking about a lot of interesting topics that were new to me. So, I'm sure you can open my eyes up to some new things today, some interesting topics for sure.
Is that kind of how you got into this one, to have discussions and share your ideas and kind of find some new ones? So is that what I'm hearing?
Exactly. Yeah. Basically just, I guess just looking for truth. It's like, after getting out of the military, like you said, just COVID was an eye opener for a lot of things. COVID just kind of set the stage for like really woke me up to people and their actions. You know what I'm saying? Going through my own stuff there as well, losing a job, etc. Just kind of seeing how the system really operates and really works. Always had that light and feeling in me, but this really kind of pushed me over the edge for real. So just wanted to connect with people in any kind of way. And I think life and nature and God, whatever, the all in all just brought us together. So yeah, I think just kind of will to seek knowledge kind of brought me where I'm at. So yeah, made my show, figure I start talking and the right people heard, and here I am.
That's awesome. No, it's awesome. I think that's I can't really disagree with, or can't really say that my story is much different as far as trying to seek some knowledge and truth and matters in this Looney Tune world we live in, and share some ideas, because you start blowing up, you start assaulting the eardrums of your friends and family with some of these ideas, and they're like, "What is wrong with you?" You know what I mean?
Exactly.
Least, that's been a large part of my experience. And you obviously probably had some friends as well in your military years that you maintained, and they were like probably night and day different from where you're at today than where you're at then, right? Was that
night and day? Yeah, like two different lives for sure.
Yeah. I kind of feel that same way myself. And I retired. Shit, it's been over 7 years. Well, just over 6 years now. February 2019. So, yeah, I maintained friendships with a number of those folks over the years, and a number of my fellow garbage can dudes, I like to call them. But yeah, it's a large part, it is a night and day difference, and I think that's kind of what I hear from not just you, from a lot of folks, and I just feel like that's kind of the nature of our kind of post meme world 2025, as I call it. We're in this weird kind of what is fact and what is fiction, and folks' realities are far different from one another. I feel like I know Nick and I have discussed these polarizing matters offline a number of times.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, the different narratives. It's like everyone's living in a different timeline. Like you said, technology is a huge part of that. Technology is a huge framer of how people think.
I think it's a magical weapon used amongst, it's what makes it happen.
The Black Mirror, right?
Yeah, that's the whole thing. That's like even things I'll say from like when you were a kid. Me and JJ can like probably say this, like it would be harder to be, I'm just going to use this as an example, a social justice warrior back in the day, because you didn't have so many visions being handed to you, to things to pick on, to run with, because you didn't have the technology. You only saw what was going on in your town, maybe, a little bit, whatever, not in another country across the world. Now we're bombarded with all these things to identify with and to take on as ourselves. It's gotten fucking crazy. And I think due to technology.
I agree, dude. I kind of relate it like this, like with this technology, everyone's on their phones and getting all this information and inundated with it. I related to an incident I remember from my high school years. There was a fellow that, my high school, for whatever, they took all the special needs folks from they closed down the special needs school or whatever, the folks who, the whole spectrum of issues, from autism to everything else. And suddenly they were integrated in all the courses and classes, regular classes. Well, that's kind of strange, but one of these dudes was pretty violent, you know what I mean? Like he'd be, I think he was kind of on the autism spectrum, and he had an assistant, but they'd leave him unattended at times, if you will, no disrespect to the situation, but obviously he needed some assistance, and folks would just get in his ear, dude, when his person wasn't there. The rowdy folks in high school are just, dickheads. They'd get in dude's ear and just start whispering in his ear, and he would just start assaulting folks. Wow. So I relate that to how technology works today. They're always whispering shit in folks' ears, and like this severely autistic, I mean, he would beat the shit out of folks. I mean, it would get violent, you know what I mean? But it would only happen after folks stimulated these responses from the man by, whatever they're saying to him in his ear, like, go get him, and I kind of feel like that's the way technology is today, and why we're on such different narratives is because of the fact that, like, it's literally the scrying devices are in folks' hands, looking at every day, like, whispering in their ear and face holes, like, you got to be concerned about this, you got to be frightened about this, you got to be scared about this, etc. And it gets folks spun up and believing in different narratives. And I mean, I don't know about you, Charles, but in your area of the America, do you find yourself in circumstances having conversations with folks in public and feel like you're talking to an alien?
Oh yeah, bro. I rarely talk to people like that. And I'm a friendly person. Like, I love talking to people, but it's like,
sure, I love talking to folks. And I realize I look like an alien, but I still talk to folks, and they sound like an alien to me.
Yeah. No, I don't know. I think people, there's still interesting people out there, and as time goes on, it's like people are, I think, willing to talk, but yeah, there's a select number of people I'm truly open with that we're on the same wave. You know what I'm saying? Besides that, it's not really like that. It's a simple hello, goodbye, and that's about it,
Right. Yeah. Pleasantries. Right. There's not really any socialization. Then what leads next is the deterioration of anyone having community events, the socialization. Right. Largely 2020 helped shut any remaining aspects of that down in our social technology era, right? Technocratic era. But, I think one thing that, relative to some of your interest in life, being a big Fish fan, the band Fish, right? One thing,
Fish from Vermont, yes.
Born from the streets of Church Street in Burlington, Vermont, the University of Vermont campus there, just off of Church Street there. But Church Street's the main thoroughfare. It's a cobblestone way of about 4 blocks that is reduced to pedestrian traffic. So it's all it used to be all shops, restaurants, live music like you would see out on Bourbon Street, but instead of jazz, you got yourself some folk rock kind of stuff that, again, it's the culture that spawned Fish, right? This is where they played all their early acts, right? And their early shows there on Church Street.
Yeah.
And if you go there today, it's a post-apocalyptic nightmare full of shit and needles. All the businesses have shut down. You know what I mean?
MAGA. Sounds like MAGA, baby.
There's going to be no more what I'm getting at. There will not be another Fish band spawned from the elements and culture of Church Street. And again, that's a place I love. It's my bootleg home, Vermont, and Church Street specifically there. Nonetheless, like, if you delete the culture, who's the next Fish band, Charles?
Exactly. It's a bunch of AI. It's going to be an AI band, like a meta band. You have to wear your goggles, and then you can be in a live concert from your room. That's kind of that's where I feel like it's going, bro. Like,
sadly, I think you're right.
Like, COVID really showed how these bands are, like, with the whole protocol and the masks and the this and the that and the this and the that, and like everybody went along with that. Sadly, Fish too. Like, all the bands.
I didn't know that.
Yeah.
Oh, really?
Wow.
You got to show pass, all that stuff. Like, I think I did one show during that Madison Square 2021 or 22, I did MSG 420. And yeah, it was like 100% Vax Pass. You had to show a Vax Pass, and I'm sure less than 90% of the people, I don't even know the numbers, but I don't think, hey, what up? What's going on there, bro? I don't even know how many people were truly vaccinated or going according to the standard. I wasn't, surely not, but I still got in there. So how effective was all that nonsense? It wasn't. It's just a power move to destroy culture, destroy morale, destroy society, destroy law. All that stuff was unlawful. But hey, people didn't ask questions. People just went along with the presumptions, which is what got us to where we're at, which is why people lost jobs, why people got so much destroyed. Hey, what up, Anna? How you doing? And is it cool?
Yeah,
cool
I think the stage was set for the events to transpire, to shatter what was the relationships remaining in society, and that's where we find ourselves today in these polarizing opposite timeline of events when you just go out in public and folks are just, they have way different worldviews.
Right. Yeah, exactly, man. It's crazy.
It's kind of scary, right? It feels like a Philip K. Dick post-apocalyptic nightmare.
Where is this going, do you think, as far as culture? Like we see, okay, think about you and your childhood. Think about culture then. Now, I don't know if you have kids, children, whatever. Think about that now, like them and their future. How are things looking? Like the controllers, what are they trying to create with this? Because there's nature. You always have to deal with nature because nature doesn't bend for anyone. Nature is true. And then there's man-made whatever, insert nonsense here. How do the two work, No,
I get it, dude. I've had those same thoughts. So like my son, he's almost 18 now. He operates as a 45-year-old though, so he's older than me. If you ask him. So a large part of one of the reasons that motivated me to even want to talk about things that I talk about is because I do fear for the world that he and his offspring grow up in.
Yeah.
I mean, we've watched our own liberties just, be eroded in my lifetime here. And, just from early in childhood, I can recall even especially the 90s and the Joe Biden backed sponsored bill that was the early Patriot Act. I vividly recall that. I think it was, circa 1995 there, right after the OKC situation, right, and the Wakeups situation, the Ruby Ridge situation. So, there's a lot to be said, I think, in directing, these events that direct us in these new, tyrannical, laws and infringement on liberties. But nonetheless, it's gone down at a rapid pace since the 1980s, if you ask me. I mean, to where we're at today. So I think looking back at my childhood, I don't see, I was never inside. I wasn't allowed inside. I didn't really watch TV. You know what I mean? My son very much had a lot of similar rules, limited screen times and stuff like that as well. But tough to do in this day and age. But nonetheless, it's a certainly different culture either way, right? Regardless of what parents are imposing these things. Overall, the culture is different, and it's going to continue to get. Yeah, it seems that way, right? It doesn't seem like anything's going to be changing anytime soon.
No, I don't think so. It's a different time, different day. Like, I think people still have that inherent truth. It's like we still have natural things pushing us, but as far as like culture and trends and how things go, it's like there's so many polarities and so many different like types. You know what I'm saying? There's so many different like categories somebody could be in. It's like, what is culture nowadays besides your little pocket and that's that,
Right. And if you think about it, you go to different towns across America, everything's the same because everyone is connected to the same through the same shit and the same stuff or the same social media stuff and everything else like that. They're reading the same news articles. There's not really any difference. Like I travel a lot. There's really not any difference, Everywhere you go, it used to be different. It used to be vastly. I mean, before the year 2005, I'd driven coast to coast in America at least 4 times. So, and I can tell you right now that things are vastly different than what, you're doing that just 10 years ago, just within a 10-year span, vastly different.
Wow.
Where everything just, everything starts being the same,
Yeah. Yeah, that's exactly, dude. It's like that monotonous feeling, that static type of situation. You know what I'm saying? Making everything centralized, centralizing power, making everything look the same no matter where you're at. Everything's the same everywhere. You know, it's crazy.
And it's
And
lost any
yes, like being
creativity on
outdoors.
purpose.
Yeah, being outdoors definitely is a thing, and I appreciate that. Yeah, being outside is like the thing, you know. Just like yeah, growing up, I don't remember being inside like that. I played video games inside, but that was like
That's
so.
it.
That was like a thing with friends. Like that was an event, and then 90% was being outside.
Yeah,
You know.
Right. Right.
that is true, yeah. It was an event.
Yeah, yeah. Now
Yeah,
it's
yeah,
like
but most of
I
it
mean,
was out. Yes.
even in New
Hey,
York City,
outside.
yeah,
I
yeah.
was even in Long Island. I mean, in an area that's close to New York City. I mean, it was still pretty 80s suburb. I mean, it was kind of growing pains like, right? As far as the
Mhm.
depiction of the suburbs in Long Island, that was a fairly
Yeah.
accurate description.
Yeah, like
Right.
everybody on the block, all the kids knew each other. You know, there was things like in the area that we just there was a lot of shit we did. I mean, we rode bikes together. There was ramps at the end of the road. There was like woods, so we had this track. So we all rode our bikes on it. We skateboarded. Yeah, it was just like the whole area was just like it's not the same anymore. You know, like you were like not wanting to come home really. You know what I'm
Well,
saying?
yeah,
Right.
man.
Right. It would be dark outside. I'm like, shit, I gotta get back there.
Fuck, I don't want to.
And when I
I feel
say
like
when I
because
say
everyone
growing
else
pains, like I mean like right. Well, I mean, then with the 80s, we all got scared with you don't want to go in the woods. Bad stuff happens in the woods with Friday the 13th and stuff like that. And teenage sex is bad. Teenage sex, you die. In all these horror films, right? These are the ideas that were imposed on America and especially the Reagan administration. But when I say growing pains on Long Island, I mean like it had the appearance of very nice places, but I'm sure much like the TV show Growing Pains, there's some dark shit going on behind the scenes.
Yeah,
I just feel like that dark shit's now coming to the surface.
right.
No, I definitely even agree with that. Like, it's interesting, like looking back as a kid, certain things that you didn't notice. That like when you remember now, you're like, wow, like my boy back then wasn't in a good situation. And I didn't notice like memories.
Right.
That it's hard to explain, but
Yeah.
yeah, just weird shit that you look back and you're like, wow, like evil existed then. I just didn't notice it. I guess.
Yeah, as an adult, your adult mind is going back to your childhood days and saying, "Wow,
yeah,
evaluating this situation, this was sketchy."
Yeah. And now I know why my friend acted a certain way at times because he probably had a fucked up house and I didn't know.
For sure.
Yeah.
I think that's a very salient characteristic, for sure, of what we're talking here. But it also, I think it just seems today, though, shit is just on the surface more, right? Maybe it's just me. Folks don't want to let their kids go play out until dark time because it's too dark for them to consider these things.
Right.
I remember when my son first went to kindergarten before I homeschooled him. Oh, go ahead, Charles. What was that?
Oh no, there's danger. It's like everything's a danger mindset versus like, hey, just let the kids play. Now it's like you got to control everything. Put them on the iPad. It's just easier. Let them learn on the iPad. Yeah, it's crazy, man.
For sure. I was appalled my before I homeschooled my son. In his younger years there. He went to kindergarten, public school, and I was appalled that they were trying to get me to sign up for to Lowjack my child. I was like, what is wrong with you people?
Wow.
You know what I mean? If you're going to scare the shit out of every parent that comes in here that they need to put a tracking device on their child's backpack or person, I'm like, this is Looney Tunes. What world are you advocating here?
This is not the place.
I remember even having a discussion because, and I went a little. I tarted out on him. I was like, you know what? The crime statistics don't support anything in what you're inferring here. This is all a terror campaign. I probably shared a little bit too much of my opinion, but again, the idea that the children are randomly kidnapped, you need to Lowjack children. There's nothing to support that statistically wise, crime statistics wise. These things occur by folks they know, not random people. And, this is the culture I think that's being instilled on folks through these these advancements in technology. Look, we advance the technology. We can now Lowjack your child. Not to mention they're Lowjacked already with a phone, right? But I'm just saying this was slightly before phone time, right?
Yeah. If you've got a phone, you're already in. Like exactly. You could put a tracker on the kid, or you could just find my phone with your iPhone, and there it is. It's crazy.
Right. And I'm not saying
Training.
that there's not obviously random kidnappings and stuff and networks of stuff that have done this over the years, networks of folks that, have kidnapped, random children. That's obviously occurred, but the vast majority of circumstances, that is not the case. You know what I mean? It doesn't support forcing a public school system to start instituting lowjacking your children.
Yeah. Yeah. And somebody in the comments, Polaris23, saying the black mirrors are not for children. Yeah, they're not for anybody, really. Them things say that they're not
I agree.
supposed to be used in the way, like, it's all algorithm based, and you're correct. It's not for kids. It's not for anybody. But here, I've seen children like 2 years old, like navigating through them things, like just boom, boom, boom. Like, it's nuts. It's nuts. Meanwhile, we know there's NIH studies. We know there's like patents on the books that talk about, like, the neural and central nervous system, like disruptors in these like screens, in the technology being used, in the lights. Like, that's a thing. Like, yep. Meanwhile, kids are using
big
this.
Time.
Yeah, exactly.
Big time.
Crazy.
Yeah, Scary. I mean, and just the idea, again, the influx of information you're dealing with, at what point in time is this just not, we're not cut out for these things as humans, you know what I mean? Like, you don't need constant updates from all your. I'm not a social media person there, Charles. So no disrespect to folks who are. I mean, we communicate through Twixter, but I do these things from a podcast. You know what I mean? I don't do personal social media. I'm not posting a photo of my burger and saying, "Look at this delicious burger," despite the fact that I love burgers. That's never something that's going to happen in my life. You know what I mean? But we do live in a culture where folks are doing that. They're getting updates. They're getting notifications. They get dopamine hits based upon these things, to where this becomes the reality. When you say folks are going to put on goggles and go to a concert, I mean, we're not that far off.
No, not at all. Yeah, no, that's kind of where it's at. Goggles to do work, remote work, goggles to kind of see things, travel. You don't need to actually go somewhere and experience the culture. Eat the food made by the people there with the ingredients there. Get the full feel of what it is. No, don't do that. Just kind of put these goggles on, cook a little, thing in your house, and there you go. That's culture. Enjoy. Scary.
Yeah, for sure. So you cover a lot of these topics we've already been discussing on the Eyes and Ears podcast, and I definitely appreciated the invite with Heidi there, and enjoyed that conversation. I definitely highly recommend folks check that one out. Heidi Love, The Unfiltered Rise, and fellow occult reject and myself, we joined Charles for a conversation of a roundtable discussion on these kind of topics of lifting the veil, right?
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, just because everything, and I did a show last night talking about cartoons, like everything being a cartoon, like there's veils everywhere. Like we live in it, like I said earlier, presumptions. There's so many presumptions made, and like we think one thing, but in reality, the world is totally, it runs on its own course, and we're following somebody else's course. So it's like, who are we following? And I feel like it's sorcerers, magicians, it's old bloodlines, old families, people that have information, and people privy to things that we're not. And they're controlling the scenes and the script of how things work.
It sounds like you're talking about some old school magic stuff.
Yeah, man, all that occult magic. I mean, this is the occult rejects, right?
Yeah, well,
you are correct, sir. I was about to say you've come to the right place, sir.
Yes, all that. Yeah. So that's what it is. It's like, it's all, I don't know. I feel like that's what it is. It's like there's politics, which is a surface. There's like administrative things, which is a surface. But then there's
religions claim they're just a religion just to say that they are.
Okay.
Yeah. Like, I even think some Jews are they're Kabbalists. Yeah. And some Catholic people are just more into maybe the Catholic occultism.
Right.
Yeah. Just wanted to, sorry to interrupt you. Keep going.
Yeah, I think no, totally, man. I think every sect has like degrees. Everything has a polarity. There's like polarity to you have your extremes in all things. So it's like there's Black Jews, there's Ethiopian Jews who are just like, hey, I'm just, I read the Torah and that's it. And then you got people who are like Chabad Lubavitch. But it's like you have different degrees of things. You know what I'm saying? It is what it is. But it's like how we got to discern things. I feel like that's number one, where things start, using that discernment, being able to see beyond the veil, being able to kind of go a step further to realize that, wait a second, so Donald Trump is the president he's the father of the mRNA. He's like the warp speed. He does all these things. Israel, Iran. Like, okay, so there's that. How does that affect me in my daily life? Why is that? There's so much noise behind that, but it's like, what does that do in my daily life? What actually affects me is nature, the sun, you know, me and my children, my family, the well-being of my people. That's what affects me. When I turn the TV on, that stress level goes up. When I turn it down, it's like, wow, life is truly life without all the nonsense. But there's so much nonsense keeping us away from just nature, from a real living. There's so much, and this is where I think that the magic comes in, because this is what they're trying to take over.
I was going to say that. Yep.
Yeah, go ahead, bro. Please, anything. If y'all have anything to add, please.
No, I didn't want to interrupt you. I was just saying you're spot on, Charles. I was going to say that's exactly right. When you were saying that's exactly what I was thinking, because it is the magic. It is the signal, to use a military term that you may or may not be familiar with. I know you didn't necessarily use a lot of radio comms there in your field of the Air Force, but you know, the signal to noise ratio, right? Like, you know, the ability to actually find out what is relevant versus all this other nonsense and distraction.
Right.
And I think it is that noise, that nonsense and distraction that is the magic show.
Yes, exactly. And through that noise, it shapes you and it changes you. It's like vibrations. If the thing vibrates you and hits you at a certain level, and if you vibrate with it, well, mission accomplished. They've disrupted you. Yep. Versus them vibrating at you and you being able to block it and stand firm in your own vibration, vibrating higher than them. That's what they don't want. That's why they spray the sky. That's why we have the Weather Modification Act, folks. Go look it up. It's on the books. It's like USC, like I forgot the 15 maybe, but it's like actual. It's law. They spray. You don't hide it. It's a thing.
I did an episode on, this is old, like probably like 2 years ago. Me and Teresa, I think we did an episode on weather manipulation patents. I mean, there's tons of them. And that shows proof that they're being done. If they're patented, and it's even explaining to you how it's being done, and shit like that, it's like obviously it's fucking real. Like it's not a conspiracy.
Yeah, and it's
and I remember the first time I heard about these things. No, go ahead, Charles. Go ahead.
No, please, go ahead. Yeah, folks, 15 USC Commerce and Trade is where you will find NOAA and all this stuff dealing with the weather modification specifically. Chapter 9A, weather modification activities or attempts, reportings are required. There's a site where you can pull up the companies that do this, and those are the ones that have to record. Some don't have to record. So it is public record, people. It is happening. It is a thing. And there is a fact behind it. They're trying to disrupt us. Like they're trying to disrupt nature, not just us. We are part of nature. They're trying to disrupt nature. You know.
Yo, I swear, I could be completely wrong, but this is where I think a lot of like what you were saying with the noise, JJ. It's just my opinion. I could be completely wrong. When they were going on about that Chinese spy balloon, my opinion from when I covered manipulation patents, I saw the same thing drawn in one of the patents. I was like, that looked exactly like a weather manipulation balloon. Believe it or not, that I've seen a patent on.
Wouldn't be surprised. Would not be surprised, because the NASA uses a lot of helium, so they do.
And around that time, we had all these chemical spills. All you got to do is just blow the fucking wind now.
Well, we had that huge train disaster in Ohio, East Palestine. It was preceded by Well, and that was preceded by a Netflix film that was based upon a book that was from 1985. There's a lot of weird shit that went on with that storyline. But what was the first thought you heard when you're an Air Force veteran? So you think when you hear, geoengineering or, chemtrails, whatever you want to call it, you probably heard it after your career, I'm assuming, Charles, or did you hear it, before or during? Like, what were your thoughts the first time you heard that term, and when did you hear it?
So this was before. Like I feel like I've always been privy to these things, but just never really fully, out there like living my life like that. But geoengineering, man, I think, pre-military for sure. But like seeing it all the time, maybe when I was post-military, is when I really started seeing that. When all this started coming together.
Like, what year is this?
Spraying is really a thing, and then you just see it all the time. Tic-tac-toe in the sky.
Speaking of the signal to noise ratio, that East Palestine book was white noise and the movie was white noise, strangely enough.
Wow. There's
signal to
a
noise ratio business.
wow.
But what year was this that you started finding that these concepts of weather modification and chemtrails may in fact have validity to them?
Man, yeah,
Caused, like,
I'd
when did
say
that occur, and like what caused that occur? You know what I mean? Like
once
what
it's
motivated
the
it?
whole COVID thing really pushed me to like start like reading into everything. It's almost like I always had my doubts,
Oh,
but post COVID is when I was like, okay, I got to like read these documents myself. Like I got to like actually download the PDF and read what
sure.
the Health Human Services are saying. Because I'm getting different messages from. So basically, when I was in the military, bro, writing memorandums, reading AFIs, that's where I got that from. I guess reading the rules. Because in the military, your job is based on rules. It's not based on what you want to do. You can pick up a
That's
manual
right.
and literally read your whole job, your coworker's job,
Yep.
your boss's job, the officer's job. You can read
Yep.
everything. So that's kind of where I got that feel from. It's like, if it's governmental, it's got rules and regulations. It's got definitions of things, because things have to have definitions. Things mean things, people. Things mean things. Like interstate commerce, it means something. Motor vehicles operate in
Right.
interstate commerce. That means something. But if you don't know that, well, it is what it is. So the more reading I did, the more like, jumping into things, the more I started like, it's like, wait a second. So they're spraying in the sky. They're admitting it. What companies are doing this? Who's doing it? Asking questions. Why is the government
Right.
allowing this? Oh,
Right.
wait a second. There's an act for this. The government is literally regulating that. Oh, okay. I got it. I see. Okay. So why would they do that? Why would they do that? I
Right.
don't know. Maybe
Right.
they're
So,
vampires.
well, I would say I had some similar kind of coming to understanding of these concepts, and it was towards the end of my career in the Air Force. I spent the last few years in the reserves there, and and I knew a lot of pilots over the years. Basically once you get to like a certain level, even at a base level, everyone in charge of a base is a pilot, right? You know what I mean? So you get to know a lot of pilots and your leadership and bosses and stuff like that over the years, and I asked some questions to some of those folks. They're like, what the hell are you talking about? Spraying shit in the skies. I'm like, well, if someone's doing, I just said, if someone's doing it, then how does the Air Force not know about it? Was my question, right? Just from a real basic level. But I mean, that was probably like 2016 or so. We even in the years since then, there's been a lot of official admittance of these kind of projects from John Brennan, when he was a CIA director, talking at the Council on Foreign Relations about these programs. And if you think about it, when you're talking about it's an act, well, there's an act to ensure that we never know about these things, because freedom of speech was eradicated in America in June of 1947 via the National Security Act of 1947. Free speech cannot exist in this national security culture where things like geoengineering programs or homicidal death cults, American folks across America, not specifically the Zizian, Silicon Valley based, vegan, rationalist, AI focused, homicidal, trans death cult, but of things of that nature, they get stamped national security, right? And suddenly no one talks about it. No one knows anything that's going on with it.
Is that the official cult name, JJ?
Well, they're technically the Zizians, but I've much like everything else, I got a Muppetized thing, so we call them the Zith Lords. They were.
Yo, did Heather come up with that, or did you?
I think Heather came up with it. Yeah, Heather Fitzgerald there in the chat.
I'm trying to discredit you, but I do
remember the Princess of Darkness.
Yeah, she seems to run. She ran.
No, I love the nickname and I roll with it because
yeah,
it's spot on. Because I will credit Heather for again the Princess of Darkness there, Lucy Morningstar, for coming up with that. But yeah, they were LARPing as this is how I like to talk about ancient alien cargo cults on my largely on Operation GCD, as we discussed on my visit to your show there, Charles. And it always impresses me the amount of cultural impact these storylines have had. Star Wars, took place in a galaxy long ago, far, far away, long ago. Ancient aliens, right? These Zizian folks were LARPing as Jedi, dark Jedis or whatever, Sith Lord Jedis. Literally, they had the capes and they were wearing Guy Fawkes masks. They had AR-15s. They had walkie-talkies, and they were running around a campground scaring the shit out of young children. And I'm like, all right, well, this has gone too far.
Wow. Bunch of weird stuff, man. Like,
Yeah,
why?
We live in strange times.
Really weird shit too.
So weird, man.
Yeah. They're definitely a weird group. You know, the thing
We
is though,
definitely
is
live in
that
strange times.
all of them though all tie back to like either AI or NASA shit. It was really weird with that too. They were all tied back to like things that even like Peter Thiel or Sam Bankman-Fried were involved with. It's a little interesting.
Oh yeah, I'm sure y'all
Going a
have
little too
heard,
far
right?
out for everybody.
Trump putting Alex Karp and Palantir, right, in charge of like basically mining info and databasing people. It's like, tell me something I don't know. It's like, we know this is coming. The train has already left a long time ago. We know it's coming, but it's like they don't care. It's just rolling out.
You know whose company helped disperse most of the COVID vaccines across the country? It was fucking Peter Thiel. Trump gave him that job with one of his companies. Like, come on, man. The guy gave us the vaccine and then fucking forced it into everybody's arms too.
Yeah.
Wake up, that guy.
Yeah.
And he's got Peter Thiel paying off JD Vance now. He gave Trump $40 million the first time. Gave JD Vance $10 million. Another thing, just real quick.
Just to be clear, JD Vance, not JJ Vance, not the vice president. Please continue.
Charles, do you remember?
I've received no money from Peter Thiel. No money.
When Hulk Hogan got busted with that sex tape. Do you remember that, Charles? A long time ago when Hulk Hogan got busted with like some sex tape.
Oh boy, yeah, that was
yeah. Peter Thiel gave him the money to go after them because they outed him as gay, and he was a little upset about that. But now, if you remember, who was ripping their shirt off and endorsing Trump this last election? Hulk Hogan.
Peter Thiel.
Hulk Hogan, brother.
He's another Peter Thiel puppet. So many people were endorsing Trump that Peter Thiel is associated with.
Damn.
Quite obvious what's going on.
It's that, as Steve Poikonen says, it's the Peter Thiel is, or what's his name? JD Vance is Peter Thiel's golf glove. Just nice, easy, just, a little puppet glove. Just stick your hand in there and do what you do, It's crazy.
Yeah,
but luckily, you do know that Elon Musk is out of the administration, right? So he's not there anymore. And you do know that $590 million got cut from Moderna for doing the H5N1. So, good things are happening, but it's not like Elon Musk already started all this foolery. And it's not like that money is going to get reallocated somewhere else. By the way, where is that money going?
Remember at first it was talks of us getting paid? What happened to that?
Right. I don't think he's gone anywhere. I mean, so Peter Thiel and Elon Musk are part of what's known as the PayPal mafia. So I think they're still very much all part of the same network. And Thiel had been funding JD Vance's venture capitalist firm for at least 8 years preceding his time as a U.S. Senator. No, not 8 years. 4 years. I think from circa 2012 to circa 2016, he was, no, that doesn't sound right either, does it? We'll call it 6 years. 2014 to 2020, he was financing the venture capitalist businesses of JD Vance in Silicon Valley. So an ongoing enterprise of these, what I would infer is likely CIA seed money through Thiel back in the late 90s to begin with, right? Through like In-Q-Tel kind of related activities, right? I don't think it was specifically In-Q-Tel, but I don't remember Thiel's investment fund back then. It was an early investment in PayPal. So that's how him and Musk got connected. But there is something to be said, though, with Thiel's hatred for the First Amendment. You know what I mean? Like, again, as Nick was pointing out, he had this war on Gawker, right? So he finances Hulk Hogan, and I'm pretty sure they both were ripping their shirts off for Trump and for the election here this past year, both Thiel and Hogan. But he finances this whole lawsuit to shut down an entire periodical, right? And again, it's not that far. The timeline of which he does this is not that far off from when Nick Bryant publishes the Epstein Black Book through the same periodical. So I don't think it's beyond question to ask are those two incidents connected at all.
Yeah,
Thiel's not in the Black Book, but I'm just saying, it is odd.
It is interesting though. If you look at Epstein and Sam Bankman-Fried, they were both in some way, if you look at it, almost competitors against Thiel.
And AI for sure. Yeah, no,
and
AI
now
for sure.
They're just both just happens to work out great.
Yep.
One of them around.
Yeah, you were telling me about that before one day, Nick. Yeah, that's a good point you bring up because these are some of the top financiers of AI projects: Thiel, Bankman-Fried, Epstein, and they, more so Fried and Epstein were more on the same side versus Thiel kind of deal. But it's odd that Thiel's folks seemingly taking out competition, and old Bankman-Fried connects to a lot of things, from P. Diddy to a small rural bank in Idaho that may or may not be connected with murders up there in Moscow, and money laundering. It's definitely involved in money laundering. Bankman-Fried's connected to a lot of things, and he worked at a Wall Street firm with one of the primary Zizian cult members, where Bankman-Fried had the largest single day loss in that firm's history. This is not a big firm, so they definitely knew each other. This was the Buckholt. What was the name of the German one, Nick? The German Ziz?
Oh yeah, Buckholt. I think, yeah, if that's the one.
Yeah, that was the one. So, are you familiar with this group at all, Charles? The Zizians?
I've heard of them. I think I've heard you mention this, man, and just briefly, but nothing that deep.
Well, I have to thank Nick for really putting me onto the subject. I was familiar with the shootout in Vermont,
is this the group? There's a lady in Pennsylvania that killed her parents.
Yes.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. Cool. Yeah. I think we talked about this on the show briefly. Yeah. The lady killed her parents, and she's part of this group that's like AI based, and they're like AI heavy.
Yes.
And crunchy and okay. Tracking. We're back. We're there. Yeah.
Yeah, Nick can give you the full rundown. He's the one who put me on the subject, but it's been very intriguing, and it connects directly back to wait for it, the process.
Yeah.
Oh. So Nick, what's the origin? I guess if you can give me the key players and how did this begin and what's the purpose? Because that's what matters. Everything else is like revolving, but the root of it is always the same. What is the root of this?
I think most of them, they met up in, what is that, CFR type thing. There was some sort of kind of one thing. This is where I got out of it, because a lot of them were in that whole thing. They're a part of some sort of stuff with regulating AI in a sense as well. Even though they were pro AI, they still thought it needed to be regulated. And a lot of them met each other there. And then other people kind of got involved. But in my opinion, I think it was a lot of that to do with it, because even though the Zizian person, I already forgot their name. The head
Jack
person,
it was
the
Sith Lord.
Yeah, it was real big into AI, but then it was into shit with the brain, and there's a good and a bad and a bad good. Fucking world.
They were doing MK Ultra experiments on each other.
Yeah, taking LSD, and then when they got caught, they also got caught with other equipment too. That just doesn't make sense. They're up to something. I think.
That's the thing. That's something for sure. Yeah.
So they murked a dude in San Francisco Bay Area in Vallejo. They murked the one member's parents in Pennsylvania, and then they murked a Border Patrol agent in Vermont. They have an entire compound in Vermont. Everywhere they go, they have guns, they have ammo, they have walkie-talkies, they have medical equipment. They're doing fucking Indian burns. No, they're doing what's the name of that hemispherical tests or whatever?
Yeah, shit with the brain.
Yeah, the brain stuff. But it's directly out of some MK Ultra type shit. Right?
The hemisync you're talking about, the Monroe, Robert Monroe stuff.
Yeah, and then they also had something what is that thing that you use? A sonogram. I think they got caught with one of those.
These niggas are astral projecting. They're breaking through, huh?
I do think there might have been an occult aspect to it. I have no idea.
There's always,
and they're all very intelligent.
Yes.
I think there is. I think there is for sure.
Yeah. No, bro.
Highly intelligent, well financed. Somehow they travel, right? Somehow they're traveling internationally too. They're getting across borders and stuff into Canada and whatnot. And they all have, a lot of them have clearances. High security clearances.
Ding, 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 ding.
Some of those people could be doing shit like flatliners. That'd be the same thing. That would be forcing a magical experience without the meditation. You just knock yourself out and bring you back.
Yeah, you've mentioned.
I mean, you have no idea what these.
How does that work? You've mentioned. You kind of described that. You've kind of described that before, Nick. Can you kind of describe how that is a magical experience?
I just think from my own experience, after fucking with magic and having magical experiences, when I saw the movie Flatliners, I was like, that's basically just a cheat code. Instead of going into a deep meditation and clicking out, you're gonna knock yourself out, and you're gonna have somebody revive you after a certain amount of time. So
Wow.
to me, it's the same. I think it's basically the same concept. It's just a little bit more crazier, I think, the other way. And just like, with these people getting caught with all this medical equipment. I mean, how the fuck do you know they weren't fucking around that way? I mean, I do believe that shit's real. And the movie was probably based off of like legit shit too.
You know, this one makes me think. It makes me think of the movie Martyrs. If y'all ever seen Martyrs, it's like pushing somebody to the limit of like, but still keeping them alive. It's like you basically torture somebody like to the point of death, but they're not dead. To the point where they kind of see heaven, like Saint Stephen before he died. Like they were stoning him, but like heaven opened up and he saw Jesus and God and all this. There's a movie, that's the one. And that's the feeling. It's like at the end, I don't want to spoil it if anyone's going to watch it, but basically there's such an occult aspect to it. It's like pushing somebody physically for a spiritual reward almost. It's like a physical, as above, so below. There's a physical, there's a spiritual. There's a physical, there's an occult. There's a hidden,
I agree with that very much.
For sure.
I mean, it's even very much like shamanistic practices. You're pushing the people to like the brink of death or like feeling like it. Experience. NDE.
Right. So these are just kind of different names for the same kind of experiences and circumstances. Some more forced than others, right? Some more willing.
That's what I think MK Ultra basically is doing this to people, but they don't even know.
I agree.
Yeah.
You have no idea. It's crazy.
And it wasn't just acid. It's like we think it's like, oh, these cool, groovy psychedelics, baby. But then you have stories like Nick Olson, who jumped out of a window because he got dosed in the 40s by CIA. Or Frank Olson, I should say. And then the dude just like, he didn't know. He thought he was like, getting set up. And story goes, maybe he was getting set up. And dude jumped out a window. There's so many other drugs being used, stuff like STP, all these drugs that you were high for days. Different methods. Meanwhile, the Russians, what were they doing while Americans were doing the MK Ultra? The Russians were going the mental route, astral projection studies, like out of body experience, near death experiences. They were going in that route, the astral route. All this stuff has something in it. DMT trips. What all the Terrence McKenna, Joe Rogan, they push DMT in such a way. Like, what do I see on YouTube now? You see like Comedy Central, little like, when I took DMT, I saw elves and it was like crazy, man. And it's like, you do know people take ayahuasca as a spiritual like awakening tool. Do you know this is like a natural thing that's from like something greater than us? And you cheapen it to, yeah, bro, I got this vape pen of DMT and I'm just hitting DMT. It's like, are you serious?
Yeah, I think you nailed it.
That's a real thing.
It's an issue. I think that's from Stanford and Esalen, basically.
That's like a great, life. That's amazing, dude, right there. Yeah.
I'm not advertising this.
Mushrooms.
Oh, go ahead. I was going to show you this. I'm not advertising this real quick. But you can today go to, in Washington, D.C., the District of Columbia, you can go and purchase a DMT vape pen, be walking down the sidewalk and just blast off into a different universe, or be driving for that matter, or the folks next to you can be doing these things. That's the scary thought.
I saw it too when I was there. I was like, wow, okay.
Right? It's how is that legal, dude? No one needs that. No one needs to just recreationally jump off into a different fucking universe.
That's bro. The thing is, though, I don't even think the vapes, you don't blast off like that. I don't get the point of the vapes. It's almost like, if I'm gonna do DMT, I need like a full experience and I need a trip. I don't need a little like, it's like, whatever. I don't know, man. Am I getting old? Maybe I'm getting old. Maybe I'm getting old.
No, I remember. Whenever we used that shit as when we were younger, there was supposed to be an experience that was going along with it. It wasn't just like, oh, I'm not doing anything right now. I'll just take some acid and walk down the street. I don't know. For me, there was always like something with it as well.
I was more of a natural flipper than a candy flipper myself.
Candy flipping is my goodness.
I remember that.
And I've done both, but right? On the note of natural flipping, which would be mushrooms instead of acid. Let's take a quick time travel back to 1957 when they published this Life magazine article. No one knew that the Luce family, Mr. Skull and Bones, who owned this magazine, right, is perpetrating these psychedelic ideas. They perpetrated the LSD and they perpetrated the mushrooms through Life magazine here. So, and no one knew this fella right here is telling everybody, hey, you should do these mushrooms. It's a fucking good time. mean, don't get me wrong. I've had a lot of good times on mushrooms, so I'm a little bit on the fence on these subjects. But I don't think I think they have a use, but they're being framed improperly and perpetrated on the population as such. So
I'm with you.
I do think there are benefits, and there are. You agree with me on that one, Charles? You find some use and utility to
No, bro. Yeah, I don't mean to cut you off there. No, you're 1000% right.
No, go ahead. I think my connection's bad, so go ahead.
Yeah, we got a weird lag. No, I think you're 1000% right, dude. This makes me think of Maria Sabina, going back to Mexico. She did she grew mushrooms. Yeah. So this is it. So it's like the
this
push
is the story.
Yeah,
this is the story of that, right?
Okay, perfect. So there it is. Great story. Great minds think alike. It's almost like, why is this being pushed like this? Like, why? This stuff existed before. All these like alchemic rituals have been a thing since days past. It's nothing new. Taking entheogens, breaking into the new world, the hero's journey. This is nothing new. But why is it being promoted the way it is? Why is it being pushed in such a direction? I think it's ultimately that control, bro, because these are the same tools that can free you if used according to nature. Yes, they can free you. They can make you think clearly. You can ease up and see things for what they are if used properly. But when you don't, it's getting it's weapon. Exactly. That's right, Brent. Mr. Brent, it's getting weaponized. You're weaponizing culture.
No,
you're weaponizing drugs.
For sure.
Well, not drugs. You're weaponizing nature, medicine.
Oh, for sure. And here, if you think about this too, though, Charles, so knowing this is the benefit I guess we do have today with this influx of information and being inundated, we do have the availability of information. And much like these mushrooms, we can use that to our advantage, or we can use it improperly the way it's packaged and sold to us, is the way I look at it. Right. So like I said, I don't hate technology. Like, I hate answering machines. I've never used answering machines. You leave me a voicemail, go fuck yourself. I'm never calling you back. just because the technology is invented, you can't force me to use it. But I will selectively choose technologies in which to use to my advantage, and I'll use things like these entheogens and mushrooms. But what I'm saying is, due to the information we have today, we now know that this fella here was the vice president of public relations or propaganda for J.P. Morgan Chase. He was the head of the Council on Foreign Relations, but yet he's the guy who went on Life magazine on a journey to Mexico to go meet that Maria Sabina lady you're talking about, to tell everybody you got to do mushrooms. And notice how they kind of pull some more magic shit on you here and talks about teenage allowances, right? So they're like implying that this is for teenagers, right? Great adventures in the discovery of mushrooms that cause strange visions. Space. Teenage allowances. It's a separate article about whether or not your teenager needs allowances, but nonetheless, it's the implications that I think that is there, is what I'm saying. So what you see what I'm saying? No one knew that in 1957. This was a dude who ran pop propaganda for the biggest bank, who was the head of the Council on Foreign Relations. You know what I mean? But we look back now and see that was the case. He was working for a Skull and Bonesman who owned Life magazine, and we see where these ideas come from.
Yeah, exactly. It's the same old story, bro. The same old story. Right. You control the levers of power. Okay, Skull and Bones, like you just said, for example. You strategically put your members in key places, and they perpetuate the agenda.
You ain't kidding.
Yeah, and that's what it is. You perpetuate the agenda through control. You put people in church. You put people in the synagogue, in the mosque. You put people in schools, in legal courthouses, okay? You put people in police stations. A lot of police are Freemasons. That's a thing. A lot of lawyers are Freemasons. That's a thing. And people in the military have like oaths to different orders and such. The Knights of Malta, things like that. Like, these are all things. Like, these people are among us, They have duties. They have like oaths to uphold. This normal life is like secondary to what they have. They have a mission. And who gives them their mission? Like you said, the CFR, the Rockefellers, the same usual people. Yeah. But who gives them their mission? Where does that come from? If you ask me, you go back to Enoch, Genesis. It's that kind of thing. The fall of man, the transfer of information from up above somewhere else to people, Atlantis, if you will, all that. It's all that same thing, man.
Yep. No, I think you're hitting on some great points there, and I think as much to say about the Skull and Bones being kind of satirized in conspiracy culture, there is a lot to be said about that, and I think like you just described, the folks like they serve a purpose within this network or system we call our modern society, the Western world, and these Skull and Bonesmen, I think they're up at the top as far as district managers go, if you will. And
Right.
the ones imposing certain values within culture, making certain decisions, and it's across the spectrum. It really is. So, and to emphasize that example, are you familiar with a fellow named Steven Mnuchin?
Yes.
Former Treasury Secretary for the Trump first administration, former producer of a production company on Warner Brothers lot, and responsible for almost every hit you can think of from circa 1996 to 2015 that came out of Warner Brothers.
Yes, yeah.
Was a Brett Ratner, Steven Mnuchin production.
Damn.
And he's a Skull and Bonesman. So you see him at the top of finance in Wall Street. You see him in Hollywood at the top of the production of these films for a decade and a half, right? Again, Rush Hour. Everyone's seen Rush Hour with Jackie Chan and Chris Tucker, right? I mean, that's Steven Mnuchin, Brett Ratner production.
Come on, Lee.
I agree. That movie still plays today. I think that's a good series. I'm not saying they made bad films. Don't get me wrong. I mean,
I got a question for y'all. Why does the Asian bad guy always have blonde hair or some kind of colored hair? It's always like blonde hair Asian dude that's the bad guy.
Give me an example. What are we talking about? The guy from the first Rush Hour? Was it the first Rush
Hour? Yeah,
the first one.
The dude had blonde hair. He was evil.
Yeah, he was, wasn't he? He was in a couple movies around that time, wasn't he?
Yeah. Steven Mnuchin ain't got blonde hair, but he's just evil as is. He's just one of those bankers.
Yeah, he looks creepy, doesn't he? Look at him. He looks. I'm not even sure, Charles. I'm not gonna lie to you. I don't think I got to Muppetize him. He already looks like a Muppet.
He looks like a cartoon character to you?
Just doesn't he? He doesn't. Come on, look at him. I mean, he looks silly.
Yeah,
he's clearly batting. He's clearly batting out of the park there with his wife. If he didn't have that money, that's all I'm saying is he ain't attracting. He ain't attracting that wife he's got. He famously posed with her. They went to Fort Knox and posed with some gold bars, if you recall, early on in the Trump administration. Him and his wife did.
Damn. What else do you
remember that?
That's how you do it. Yale University Skull and Bones.
I mean, there's weird shit that goes on, and this guy's definitely involved in it, right? In this world.
Yeah, they all are, man. Just like our current Lutnick's another one. They're all of them. They're all part of the scheme. And then we got Bonginos, we got the Cash Patel, just the Stooges giving us stooge.
Real, right?
These people are all puppets, man. Just different degrees, like you said. Masons are like certain level of management, and then you got guys like Mnuchin, other level of management. Skull and Bonesmen on the level of Bush. Okay, we've had presidents come from Skull and Bones. Judges, Supreme Court judges come from Skull and Bones. Okay, federal level officials. It is what it is. That's how they do it.
We've had a president and. No, go ahead.
No, please go ahead.
I'm cutting. I apologize. I'm cutting in and out over here. Yeah, we had one guy who was the only president of the United States and chief of the Supreme Court, right? And he's the grandson of the founder, right, of the Skull and Bones, right? Alfonso Taft's grandson, William Howard Taft.
That's right.
Would you believe we have some more Taft folks at the heart of the grunge rock counterculture?
Oh boy, dude! How about David Crosby being related to the founders? It's like all these people are connected, bro. I'm pretty sure it was who was he connected to? He was connected to one of the presidents. The second
to a lot of them. He's a Van Cortlandt.
He's one of those. Yeah, he's a colonial. Like he goes back to the colonists. Like they're all tied in, bro. Either government families or like all those old families. It's crazy. But tell me about the grunge connection. Well, please?
Well, no, you're spot. No, dude, you're way closer than you even imagine there, Charles. So what you're saying is Crosby's from the original families of New Amsterdam, now New York.
Okay, yeah, that's right.
I cover these topics a lot. I cover these topics a lot on Operation GCD with the Society of Cincinnati, the secret society that started America. Now, I don't have a membership card for David Crosby, but I have strong suspicions he was a member based upon his family tree there. And again, these families are pointing out. Now, that's a new series I'm working on also, the Occult Genealogy of America. So all these major occult figures, or even figures like the Laurel Canyon scene, right, who brought us these new countercultures like David Crosby, and how they all seem to come back to the same place, right? But that goes for the grunge scene as well. So we're talking about New York and Crosby's heritage there, and what was once New Amsterdam, right? So when it was New Amsterdam, would you believe that this? So we're talking like circa 1650, we'll call it. Would you believe that Kurt Cobain's ancestor Cobain, Eddie Vedder's ancestor Vedder, and Chris Cornell's ancestor Cornell all knew each other in New York City, then New Amsterdam, in and around 1650?
Were they playing guitar together?
So you mean to tell me? Well, these guys were doing politics. One was a mayor, another one was a sheriff. The other one guy was some sort of district manager of some sort. So, you mean to tell me nearly 300 plus years later, 330 years later, 35 years later, these folks' direct descendants of these same surnames, are going to be the largest, biggest rock stars in this new thing called Seattle grunge? Come on.
Yeah. A little too coincidental. It's a little too aligned for me.
Yeah. That's interesting.
It's pretty wild, right?
Crazy.
Yeah.
That's really crazy. Damn.
That was fucked up.
That's really fucked up.
Yeah.
Dude, the more I get into it, the more I'm just like, what is actually like authentic as far as art? What is actually like, wow, this man or woman actually is just who they say they are, not somebody connected to, I don't know, a demonic entity.
Right. No, I think that's a good question.
That's crazy.
Or what's connected to an intelligence project, right? How they largely finance the 60s art world, and Andy Warhol and Jackson Pollock before that, and to quote unquote fight communism, right? So it's a good question you asked there, Charles. And I would say, if you can't even look at a hero like Steven Seagal, for example, and say like, this is not a manufactured situation. So what I'm saying is, not all manufactured situations come off the same way as what I'm describing there before, but some of them, they come off real terrible, but they're still manufactured. So apparently, even this guy is part of I guess what essentially would be a psyop in a sense, right? So apparently, if y'all are familiar with the backstory of the legendary Steven Seagal, right? There was a Hollywood agent that was like, hey, I can make anybody a star, made a bet with another Hollywood agent. And they're like, all right. And they're like, hey, this dickhead teaches this martial arts class. Let's make him a star. And we got Steven Seagal as a result of that.
Look at his hair, bro.
So even that's manufactured, right?
What isn't, man? Well, what's not manufactured? Like, there's so many like things put before us that are just so off. Yeah, what exactly? What the fuck is up with that wig? What's up with that hair?
Right.
He had nappy hair almost. He looked like a nappy-headed hoe a little bit. Did you see
that? Yo, that is
he is such.
It's funny.
He is such a weirdo, dude. He is an absolute weirdo, dude.
He got the V going on. Whoop.
Dude, there's no way that's natural. You know what I mean? He'll pop on some different wigs, dude. Like, he's wearing the weirdest, the outfits he wears is water wild,
Wow.
A little anti-lavage.
Oh, dude, I was kind of thinking that too with that pointy, right? That pointed nature. I mean, but again, that's clearly a wig. I mean, it's preposterous, right?
You think it's a wig? You don't think that?
There's no way that's real, dude. There's no way that I will show you, dude. He was losing his hair back in the early 90s, dude. There's no way that's real.
He says some spray hair.
No way. It looks like that, right?
Yeah, look at that. Look at that. Look at that. Look at his face. What happened? Okay, so there was Jean-Claude Van Damme. There was Steven Seagal. There was Jackie Chan.
Yep.
I mean, what happened?
Chuck Norris, dude. Chuck Norris was a legend.
Chuck Norris, too. Yeah, that's
Air Force Security Forces veteran Chuck Norris.
Yeah. Wow.
Not nearly as skilled as this man.
No, not
I'm
even
obviously being
close.
facetious. Are you familiar? Are you Charles? Have you ever gotten into much of the Iran-Contra business?
No, not too much. I like the early, like Mohammed Mossadegh time of Iran, like back when Iran was just its own thing and the people just really wanted A, but CIA and Great Britain said B, and then But tell me
That's within
about
the
the
late
Contras. What was
1950s.
the? Yeah, the 50. Yes, the early,
Well,
the
that's
cool days of
integral.
Iran.
Well, no, tell us about that, because that CIA coup was integral to what we'd later, be the motivating natures of what we, at least the elements of the federal government here in America would describe as we need to do this to fight those people, but they're the ones who installed those people, right?
Exactly, yeah, and exactly. They start putting people
the
in place.
Ayatollah, right?
Yes, and this is 1953. Like they said, 50s around. Like, yeah, Mohammed Mossadegh, elected leader of the people. People liked him. He wanted to basically bring back the oil. The oil was being used by Great Britain, by everybody. The oil was being hoarded out. It was like Africa, just like any African nation under colonial control. Your resources are getting hoarded out by the French, the Belgians, the English, whatever. In this case, it was the English, British Petroleum, taking in all that oil. Mossadegh was like, hey, this is our oil. We're not gaining anything from any of these deals. How about this? We claim back our oil and they could buy from us and we could do like actual deals where we profit and other people get business, like, like normal trade. Yeah. How about we do that? And that was no-go for the CIA.
That's all like what Gaddafi said, right?
Yeah, they don't like that. They don't like that.
Yeah.
Nationalizing oil, exactly, and that was a no-go. And then
so that instituted this CIA coup, right, with the Ayatollah, right, with this extremist kind of fella, right?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, there it is. BP. Yeah, it was exactly Anglo-Persian Oil Company at the time, but yeah, BP, British Petroleum. Yeah, they got Mossadegh right out, and then they put the puppet right in his place. What a shame.
Look who's involved. In New York, a society family out of the New York chapter, the Roosevelts.
Wow. Cincinnati folks, right? Cincinnati's folks.
Yep.
Cincinnati.
The Roosevelts, for sure. Yeah, the New York chapter specifically, those Dutch families, they're a Dutch family. So we had the 1953 Iranian coup d'etat, right?
Yeah. That's when
Mossadegh gets ousted.
That's the one. They got him out.
Yep.
And it's all, of course, fake supporters. Ajax, that's what it was. Operation Ajax. That's the one. That's the one. And then we see this time and time, folks. Like, this isn't new. Exactly like you said, Gaddafi. Like my time in Sierra Leone, I traveled over to Sierra Leone a few years ago and saw a mosque and like a road and just infrastructure like projects started by Gaddafi. And people there were asking me, like, hey, like, why do you, like, Americans, why do you guys hate Gaddafi so much? And, my answer was like, well, he's a terrorist. And I was a teenager at the time. I'm like, I guess he's like a terrorist. He kills people, I don't know. And it's like, he kills people. Like, he's over here building things. Like, look at this mosque. Like, he built this. Do you see the marble? Do you see how it's like, do you see this? He did this. Water, he's given us water. Like, he's trying to build an infrastructure. Like, why would you guys, like, take him out like that? He's a terrorist.
Right. Well, he was a nationalist, right? He was a nationalist.
Exactly. Yeah, he's a Hitler type, and we don't want that. We don't want people that say, hey, this is our nation. And some, what's his name in Venezuela? Chavez. You just pick a name. They have them. And some guys are bad, and some guys are put up to be a certain way. But the ones that are actually true, like Patrice Lumumba in Congo, in Africa, they get rid of those guys. Get rid of him. The loudmouths who like stand up for the people, get rid of them. Yeah. No bueno.
That's the playbook, right? The CIA in this right here, it says CIA MI6, right? And you can look at the list of names here. I see at least 3 members of the Society of Cincinnati, including Winston Churchill. And I often argue there's an anti-liberty faction of the society, and it has been posed through MI6, the CIA, and one of their puppets is the Process Church of the Final Judgment, which includes more society families, specifically from New York. Go figure. But we see these things, right? What you're describing is this outfit is installing these folks, Gaddafi, who's Saddam Hussein, Hugo Chavez, right? The list goes on, right?
Yeah.
The Ayatollah. And then we're like, hey, this guy sucks. We need to fight him. And usually it's because the person they installed just says, hey, look, I'm not going to sell you our nation's resources for a penny. So you all can go fuck yourselves. And here in America, I wish we'd adapt that attitude. For example, the French corporation Nestle has had a long-term contract purchasing large volumes of water and spring water from the state of California, owned by the people, the taxpayers of the state of California, but purchased at nickels on the tens of thousands of dollars. And they do so during what they impose on folks in the state of California as a drought. So we've been selling out these nations' resources for a long time here in America.
Yeah.
I think that's what it boils down to, right? With these other leaders and Iran, but it then perpetrates the reason why they can go to war with these folks, right? And then make more money, right?
Yeah. That's how it goes, man. We came, we saw, he died. Yeah, pretty much. Good old Hillary Clinton quote there, but yeah, man.
Iran. Oh well, yeah. Yeah, she was involved in the whole Gaddafi thing, right? Yeah, she said that, didn't she, about Gaddafi? Yeah, and her the Olsen twin from Full House, her brother-in-law, the former French president, got brought up on charges for that same business. Hillary Clinton did not.
Damn. Yeah, of course not. She
Why the
Jay-Z's song "Dirt Off Your Shoulders"? That's her. She just keep them shoulders clean. She's good.
Isn't that a weird sentence, Charles? The star of Full House, one of the Olsen twins' brother-in-law, was involved in the assassination of Muammar Gaddafi with Hillary Clinton. That's a sentence in the 90s. I would have told you that sounds batshit crazy, Charles. That's never
exactly. 2000.
But here we are today, and
you'd be like, "What, bro? You're too less than you're reading the Inquirer, bro." Yeah, you're crazy.
Right.
Wow. No, not nowadays, bro. That's real.
Like, did you ever hear about Iran-Contra at all? Was this a subject you recall hearing about in America at all growing up, or probably vaguely, maybe a little bit getting the conspiracy culture?
Well, first off, see, I saw that propaganda movie with Ben Affleck, of course. I saw that. What's the name of that? Argo.
Argo. Yeah, Argo. That was the name of the operation. Operation Argo.
Yeah, that's the Argo. Yeah. So I saw the propaganda film to kind of get the taste, but yeah, getting people like last minute, getting people out, just the whole uprising, Ayatollah coming in, like the whole thing being a fraud, something being off about it. What can you educate me on that, please?
Now you're bringing up some highlights of the initial onset of this tomfoolery. So it spins off into this worldwide drug and gun trafficking situation, largely operated MI6 and CIA, as we saw before with the coup there in Iran. And this is when they go save some folks. The October surprise of convincing them not to release them until after the election of Reagan from Carter. There's probably some validity to that. SEAL Team 6 is born out of this event. Operation Eagle Claw, I think was the name of the operation. Ross Perot would famously hire a bunch of other mercenaries here in America and then fly over there himself to save his own people. What he was doing over there, I don't know. But this would spin off into further, these activities would continue to evolve. And by the 80s, they're dealing coke across America to quote unquote fight communism across the world, right? Which I think that's just, again, a convenient thing to say when you've created these environments in the first place with these quote unquote despot leaders they install, right? So what I'm saying, it's all part of the same machine, but we're just sold as this idea like we got to go fight these assholes. But no, you guys put these assholes in power and you're the one pissing them off. Yeah, and you're the one doing all this to do hood rat shit and deal drugs and guns. And that's what it boils down to and continues on through hearings in the early 1990s. And I remember a little bit then, and I got into conspiracy culture in the mid 90s, and I remember reading about these kind of things, but I thought it was something that largely had gone away. And over time, it's like these things still definitely plague our nation. Nothing really gets resolved. No one really gets held accountable, do they? These damn things, right?
Never. Meanwhile, Barry Seals is flying, pure cocaine from South America to the States for the CIA. And then the CIA is pushing that over to the head muckety muck of the streets. And then that guy, being an informant, being, of course, a puppet of the government, is running all these things in the streets. You're like the point of contact. You're the face. You're the liaison between the government and the actual boots on the ground, so to speak. It's all operations. The boots on the ground is actual people living in the streets. Let's say New York City, California. You go back to the 80s. Okay. Yeah, it's a hell of a drug. You go back to the 80s with crack. Like, where were these people getting coke from to make this crack? Who gave them the ingredients to make crack? You think these niggas came up with this on their own?
Right.
No, they didn't.
Freeway Rick Ross says it himself. They didn't. He said he tells everybody today now out of prison. It was the CIA. It was these operations. It was the Medellin coke, the Pablo Escobar coke. Right, all the same stuff that cocaine Bob Evans was dealing in Hollywood in circa 1983 with Roy Radin, which solicited that man's murder. So that's a process church related Son of Sam activity. Ultimate evil.
Wow.
That is that's what you're saying, and what I'm trying to get at is these things affect every aspect of our society, from Hollywood to the hood, right, with the crack epidemic, right? You know what I mean? Yeah. It affects, and it's all this, but we look at them almost as separate conversations. It's all the same thing.
It's all the same thing. It's just a different department of the same thing. You've got the DOD, right? The DOD has the Air Force. It's got the Navy. It's got the Army. It's all the thing. And even in the Army, you've got the medics. You've got Flightline. You've got security forces. You've got the people that do, you've got different sectors, but it's all the same thing. It's all the same mission,
That's a good way to look at it. Nick, what do you remember from the 90s? You were probably old enough in the 90s to remember Iran-Contra hearings when they were going on, right? Or
I remember them on the TV.
Early 90s when it was popping off.
I had no idea what the hell it was about. I just remember seeing Oliver North constantly.
Yeah, so that's right, dude. Right, and that was, so what do you think of that? Was that kind of like they kind of try to, I think that was a production, right, to convince everybody they put Oliver North out there, look, we're holding this guy accountable, and et cetera, et cetera. Meanwhile, we have Trump's first administration. Barr is an undercover CIA agent identified in Mena, Arkansas drug operations during that same time frame, right? Known as, I believe, Bill Johnson, not Bill Barr. That was his undercover name. So he was there's a lot of shit that went down in Iran-Contra that it just never got resolved. But we were packaged this narrative right on all these hearings, right? I remember the Oliver North hearings. There was,
where were those hearings held? Were they before Congress?
It was Senate. Yeah, that was in the Senate, because I remember that Hawaii senator.
If I would
it was the
just going by today's day and age, because I have thought about this. What you're getting at was that even a production? And I think about now, it's like whenever they bring somebody to question, it doesn't make a fucking difference, regardless.
Yes, sir. And look who ran it. Mr. Skull and Bones himself, John Kerry.
Run his mouth and brought somebody to get questioned. Doesn't fucking John do anything. Kerry. Look up and see if anybody's actually gone to shit.
Yeah, nobody does. Yeah, and the Iran-Contra stuff started with John Kerry, right? The Skull and Bonesman. Wow. Back to them, right? On that note, I'd like to share a quick.
Wow.
Right. No, it doesn't go anywhere. We're giving these productions and convinced to go somewhere, right? So on that quick note, I have a quick video I'd like to share with y'all. Y'all remember this?
This famous video.
Also, were you a member of Skull and Bones in college and Bush? Were you in the same secret society?
That's all right. Let me answer his question.
Whoa.
Don't tase me, bro. Don't tase me.
Classic. Wow.
Help.
Ain't nobody helping you.
No one helped me.
Wow.
Get away from me, man. Get away from me.
Quite a struggle, right?
What did I do?
Wow.
What did I do? What did I do?
Keep the cameraman filming all that.
No shit, dude. And this is...
Get off of me. I didn't do anything. Help me.
No one's doing any. They're all just stunned and staring.
Yeah,
right?
bro. That's a sad. That's crazy.
Can you let me go? I'll walk out of here. Let me go.
It's all about conditioning, right?
Yeah, dude.
I think if everybody just
Even John Kerry's like, let him go. Let him ask the question.
You'll have an option.
I'll answer his question. And
Yeah, well,
Wow.
that's where the "Don't tase me, bro, don't tase me" comes from, right? And
Yeah, legendary
the,
quote.
you can hear John Kerry in the background saying, "Just let him go, let him ask the question." So, like, even the Skull and Bones.
Why did they get after him for asking though? Like, what was the cue to do that? Because John Kerry didn't care.
Yeah, right. I know, right? It's almost like some handler cared, right? One of Kerry's handlers maybe signaled somebody, right?
Yeah,
The whole thing was set up.
That's always a possibility as well.
You don't have to worry
Although I
about
don't
any
think.
plot already.
What is it?
You don't have to worry about cues because there's already a plot and a storyline already.
Sure.
I'm just saying, it's possible.
I just think that it's certainly possible.
yeah.
Because
I
again,
think
like
that,
put it your way, we're so focused on Skull and Bones, but isn't the Society of Cincinnatus really the common thing behind all presidents?
Yeah, so I think there's obviously some sort of crossover to some regard, especially with those organizations. And I think one of them is more higher order than the other, if you will. So I think, again, like, I look at these Skull and Bonesmen folks as more like the district managers of the system, if you will, right? You know how Paul Giamatti, the actor Paul Giamatti?
Yeah.
Y'all familiar with him?
Uh-huh.
He was the son of Bartlett Giamatti, the guy that banned Pete Rose from baseball. May he burn in hell. Not Pete Rose, but Bartlett Giamatti. His son, Paul Giamatti, Skull and Bonesman. If you recall him in the film Truman Show, right? He's the guy behind the board, the sound board, and the production board, right? I feel like that's kind of a metaphor for what his people do in this world.
Wow, the God character, God controller.
Well, Ed Harris was God. He was like God's right hand, right?
That's right. This is more controller. That's right. Yeah, like the controller type, right? The manager type.
So I mean, they're like. Yeah, so like the society. Now, I'm not saying the Society of Cincinnati or God. I'm saying in this metaphor of the Truman Show, this Ed Harris character is more like the God character, and I think that's the functionary of the higher order that's reporting down to the Giamatti character on managing the world, right? And I think that's kind of a metaphor of the Skull and Bones people of Giamatti take orders from other people, and I think some of those other people are in this country here, obviously the Society of Cincinnati.
Right. Wow.
Again, I'm not calling them God. I'm just saying in a metaphor, right?
Yeah, of course. Yeah, exactly. Oh, yeah.
Right. Yeah, they call him the control room director. Was his character's name? He didn't even have a name, right? In the Truman Show.
Wow.
Do you know Congressman Matt Gaetz, or former Congressman Matt Gaetz, almost Attorney General or whatever?
The dude that looks like Joker, Jack Nicholson, Joker.
Yeah. That creepy. Yeah, that creepy son of a bitch. His folks own the Truman Show house. They live there. That's where they live. He grew up. I think he grew up there.
Oh God.
Right?
Of course they did. Of course. Why not?
Right.
Yeah. These connections to me, it's a bit much. Where it's look at him. Yeah, bro. He looks like the Joker, dude. Jack Nicholson Joker.
Oh, big time.
That face is so tight, dude.
So
he got
again,
off
like,
real nice
we look at
girl thing. He got off real. He just kind of he did a stage right. He just slid right off with that.
Dude, if you remember, okay, so I'm glad you brought that up. You're talking about the incidents where he allegedly adopted his girlfriend's younger Cuban brother or something like that.
Whatever, yeah.
Yeah, like
is that what we're talking about?
Against them or something.
Yeah, it was some weird stuff, right? So if you paid attention to Florida politics at that time going around, what was going on, they were all attacking each other. Suddenly someone leaked a photo of Ron DeSantis as a young lawyer at a Florida State University sorority party or something like that, with a bunch of sorority girls looking like, half clothed at that matter. So I'm not saying, again, sexual proclivities of whatever, they're adults, whatever, nonetheless. But I'm just saying there was a lot of photos being leaked in a political mudslinging fashion. At the same time, he was going under shit. Then you had the DeSantis stuff, and that wasn't long after Andrew Gillum, the DeSantis's gubernatorial candidate from the Democratic Party, got busted down there in Miami, waking up next to a male hooker after they'd done a bunch of meth and apparently were banging it out all night, and both OD'd. So that's what I'm saying. Like, it seemed like what I'm saying is somebody tipped off law enforcement that the gubernatorial candidate banging out some male hooker in a Miami hotel doing a bunch of meth. I'm saying there's a lot of political mud getting slung in every direction around those same times, right?
Wow. Damn.
Yeah,
it would make sense if it's a political season, especially. Because these people get dirty. They get dirty, and that's just the surface
Big
stuff.
time.
Behind the scenes, these niggas are schemy. They're evil. So, yeah.
Yeah. Big time. Y'all remember the Florida governor candidate, the gubernatorial candidate against DeSantis, Andrew Gillum? He almost won.
Yes.
This is from February 2021. Sex worker tells GQ he and politician Andrew Gillum did drugs in a Miami Beach hotel. So someone tips off the media, law enforcement, everybody, but also someone called 911 who was not present in that hotel room. It was a third party from elsewhere. Allegedly, it was the hooker's boyfriend. And Gillum and this male hooker had a prostitute down there in Miami Beach, had apparently overdosed. He had flown down there from what's the capital, Tallahassee or Gainesville? Which one is it? Gainesville. Tallahassee. There we go. That's Florida State, right? Okay, yep. Yeah, Tallahassee. So he flies. That's where he lives, right? As a state senator or whatever, running for governor or whatever. He's down in Miami Beach apparently to attend a wedding, but then suddenly the next day he's dead on nearly dead on a hotel room floor, OD'ing from meth with this male hooker. And again, like it was it got swept away pretty quickly, but I mean, there's a lot of weird shit getting thrown back and forth. Someone tipped somebody off to that situation, you know what I mean? So before it was determined they'd OD'd. The OD determination I don't think occurred till they got there, but there was tons of cameras on deck, so I feel like there was some tips going on.
Wow. Gainesville.
I always get Florida and Florida State mixed up. So Florida State's the one in Tallahassee. University of Florida is in Gainesville, and that incident occurred. The "Don't Tase Me, Bro" incident occurred in Gainesville, I believe, right?
Wow. Don't tase me, bro, for real.
Don't tase me.
I have no idea.
Dude, it spawned an entire meme, right? Dude, that was one of the first memes I remember. Don't tase me, bro.
Yeah. Holy shit.
So I generally think when we look at things like that Kerry committee and what these elements of this Iran nonsense that, as you pointed out, Charles, started in the 50s, but was still plaguing us even today, let alone the late 80s and early 90s when all this stuff kicked off with these hearings and all this drug trafficking and gun trafficking, etc. But I really do think there's something to be said that these things are packaged and sold to the American public as if it was like a production, right? It is a production in a sense, like, you know what I mean? Does that make sense?
Yeah. It's like, in the military, there's exercises, right? Like a base X, where the whole base is aware of what's going on. Everyone's got roles. There's a whole thing. There's characters, literally. Everything's set up. So same thing with this. It's like they give you a certain narrative. You have John Kerry, John Kerry, who's on board with this. It's like you got to have your key players to make sure the thing goes as planned. And there always is a plan. We just get the theatrics of it, but they already have the beginning and the end. They got the whole thing mapped out, and they're just following plans. And we're watching,
No, and like Nick was saying before, like I was saying, like I felt like this thing was covered, everything was good to go. And I remember reading about this stuff in the late 80s, early 90s, and this is a settled deal where they busted everybody, right? They had hearings, right? But again, I think so. Not only is it the production, like I think there's some sort of magical spell in which the way they package the production together to sell it to folks, right? That it doesn't cause folks to immediately be like, well, this seems like bullshit. Because I watch it now, I'm like, come on, man, this seems like bullshit.
It was no different than the Nuremberg trials, I'm sure.
That's another good example. You go.
That's the thing that I find interesting is that, like, how did our country, who didn't even adhere to those laws themselves, press charges on another country for not? I don't get that. Was that even real?
Exactly. Exactly.
And what did they get? Like 12 Nazis? They hung about a hot baker's dozen or so out of the 100,000 some odd registered Nazis, right? And not to mention the ones that got U.S. pensions in retirement, right?
The ones that became government contractors and
Right.
employees and agents, etc.
For sure. But that's a good example, Nick, because that was sold to which folks thought like, oh, well, we got them. We got the Nazis. We did the Nuremberg. I mean, I remember that in history class growing up. Like, yeah, we had the Nuremberg trials. You know, we got them.
Yeah.
And like I wasn't
But
joking.
then you look at the
before.
facts of it, and you're like, the facts don't really check out here, bud. I mean, you got a baker's dozen of these guys.
Yeah, somebody's got to go.
When me and
Go ahead.
Thresh covered MK Ultra, he actually showed that like
Yeah, I keep lagging over here.
yeah, that this country doesn't. When I said doesn't adhere, like they don't acknowledge those laws. Actually, they never adopted them. So
No,
like, how
right.
they press those charges then?
Right. Yeah, it's all shammy. It's all shammy, man.
Right. Like, yeah, well, yeah, so it's bullshit from the start, then, is what you're saying.
Yeah. Yeah. It's like a put-up trial. It's the whole thing was set up to, you know, people got to go. We got to like set. It's basically like we got to put an end to this thing and start the new world order for real. It's like, hey, it's like the story. Bad guys lost. The good guys won. The bad guys were brought to justice. And cue the 1950s. Cue CIA. And cue all, you know, all that.
Cue the hippie movement that's going to change the entire fabric of our society.
The beatniks, cue LSD, cue everything, cue all that. All that. What octopus murders?
Yeah, so as a result of all these activities we're discussing, you know, these things don't get resolved. No one's held accountable, and it does reach every aspect of our society. And we see headlines like this in recent years, but based upon the Danny Casolaro Promise software, which was a component of that Iran-Contra business. The Promise software, which included folks like Ghislaine Maxwell's dad, included folks like who's another Promise software salesman for the CIA. There was a number of them, but notably Maxwell's father, right? So, and again, so that's more MI6 kind of Israeli stuff too going on with him. But we see headlines like this: murder mystery, octopus murder filmmakers trying hard to untangle case, but saying conspiracy is so complicated, because it does. It touches everything, right? And so much so, going back to Steven Seagal, there's a fellow that's connected to this, who's apparently a hitman of some regard, who was in the film Under Siege, and was apparently a friend with Steven, none other than Steven Seagal. How weird is that?
Wow. Circle back to Steven Seagal's and his nappy-headed hair.
Yo, and isn't he's into Russian shit?
Dude, he's the number one dude in Russia. He's their number one movie star, you know, in Russia.
Well, who also fooled everybody and said we have Hitler as well, and they didn't.
Look at homie, dude.
Right.
They're fucking Russian.
Wow.
Yeah, so this dude who's in Under Siege is like a spooky dude amongst this network for many years, dating back to allegedly to JFK. But you know, fast forward to the 90s, and he's you know, like I said, doing things like appearing in the film Under Siege.
Yeah, where he's riding in a train. Or that's not Under Siege. It is, right?
That's Under Siege 2. Under Siege 1 was the cinematic masterpiece that brought together Tommy Lee Jones and Gary Busey as the antagonist against Steven Seagal. Never again in Hollywood cinema history or the future will you find such a dynamic trio.
No.
Seagal versus Tommy Lee Jones and Busey. Busey post motorcycle accident. It's the best Busey.
Crazy Busey.
Crazy Busey. Yeah. So in Under Siege, if you recall, in the first one, they sit like when Busey and Tommy Lee Jones, who were Busey's a naval officer, right? And, you know, it's number 2 on that ship, the operations officer, and Tommy Lee Jones plays a CIA spook, wet work guy who they decide they're going to try to kill, and you know he's like, "Fuck you guys, I'm coming after you now," right? So, you know that, you know, at the time I'm like, "Oh, this kind of seems outlandish," but now looking back, I'm like, "That sounds like an accurate plot." Right?
Yeah,
So
bro.
you see in the war room at one point in that movie, I'll bring up a picture. You see in the war room all the the National Security Council, right? Speaking of these matters of national security, sitting around the table at the National Security Council is Robert Booth Nichols, a fucking assassin within the spooky network, apparently, and
Wow.
connected to the Promise Software Octopus stuff with Danny Casolaro, and seemingly friends with Steven Seagal.
Nothing big there. It's all
Right?
It's all good.
It's all good. Speaking of Tommy Lee Jones, how about recently I was thinking about Men in Black, especially that first one, and how that movie is just so telling on so many different levels. And just what do y'all think about Men in Black? If you've seen Will Smith classic,
it's a great one, isn't it? I mean, those movies still kind of play. Even number 3 when they bring Josh Brolin to play the young Tommy Lee Jones. I'm a big Brolin fan myself. The Goonies.
Mm-hmm.
Now, I like it. What are your thoughts there, Charles? I mean, I'm happy to share mine, but what are your thoughts?
I mean, yeah, I think it's one of those films that kind of like The Matrix, one of these movies that like it's plain day in your face telling you like what's kind of going on. It's like the alien thing. It's like, oh yeah, they're among us. They kind of live here. There's like an alien airport where the niggas just kind of live life like we do,
Right.
except it's aliens. Like the scene where Tommy Lee Jones is, he stopped the dude on the road and the guy's like freaking out because his wife's giving birth, but it's like an alien squid baby, all of that. It's like they're just like among us. It's almost like it's normal. You look at the news, the Inquirer, yeah, it's crazy news, but it's actually real. It's actually like real news. Like all this stuff is real, like all these like little symbols and like the World's Fair, all these things. It's interesting, man. Just it's telling you what's going on,
No, I mean, I leave it open that there are these kind of secret agencies that have perpetrated this entire circus on us to make us have a false belief in reality. Because again, we've already identified for the last 90 plus minutes a lot of false beliefs in reality that we already have. So, I'm open to these things of that nature for sure. I'm also open to folks like Will Smith, who's a Scientologist, wanting to convince everybody that we live in an ancient alien cargo cult planet, right? So, I'll leave it open for these ideas, but no, I like where your head's at there, Charles, because again, it's imaginative and probably a lot less dark than the others, right? But maybe it's
I
more
did not
dark.
know
I'm not
that
sure
he
where
was
that
a
goes.
Scientologist. Is he really?
Yeah. Well, you've seen his children, right? Those offspring, Willow and whatever
His
the other one is.
offspring, yeah.
They're kind of
yes.
they're out there, right?
They're out there.
So you can thank the education system of Scientology for that. So
Damn
they were
good.
educated at a Scientology charter school that was a franchise that was issued to their parents, Will and Jada Pinkett Smith. And last I checked, you don't get that franchise for that charter school unless you're a member.
Wow. Incredible. Very interesting. So that's why Willow is all goofy and weird.
Oh, man.
And that's why Jaden, I saw on X today, he's wearing like a dress. Like he's like carrying a person wearing a dress. It's like, oh, all right, you go, girl.
I believe he's the on contract model for some female designer line.
Damn, bro. How much like what's the worth of that lifestyle, man? I'd rather be my boring old self living in my house, talking to 2 guys on my computer, than have millions on millions wearing a girl's dress, carrying a bag, being promoted. Will Smith co-founded and funded the New Village Leadership Academy, a private school in Calabasas, California, which used Scientology study technology. The school was open from 08 to 13 and also incorporated Montessori, Gardner, and Bruner educational methodologies. While Smith selected the management and funded the school, his wife, Jada Pinkett Smith, was also involved in its operation. NVLA ultimately closed on June 28th, 2013.
Yes, sir. Thank you, sir. Appreciate that, Charles. Yeah, so I think that was the years they went to the high school, basically, I believe.
But it's that little stretch there. Wow. Yeah. 5-year stretch.
Yeah.
Damn, man. Okay, well there it is. No, and then you look at these people's relationships with their kids, each other. It's like whatever this is, it don't seem right. It don't seem normal. It don't seem natural. I'll pass.
argue with that.
Not for me.
Well, back.
Yeah, you're back, sir.
Well, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, it's crazy, dude, how that is. But
Right. So, and on this note of Steven Seagal's buddy, Robert Booth Nichols, who's apparently this deep state kind of network assassin fella, probably not that much different from the storyline you get about Charles Harrelson, which is Woody Harrelson and Matthew McConaughey's father. Did you know that, Charles? Did you know that Woody Harrelson and Matthew McConaughey have the same father?
half brothers, I didn't know that.
Yeah, and that father, that father alleged himself to be a JFK assassin, and you know, who knows? It's possible, I suppose, but
With
he's definitely
Michael
one of these.
Hoffman II, right?
Michael Anthony Hoffman's book. Yeah, was that you're talking about with the King Kill 33?
I think Hoffman. I remember listening to something where he said he spoke with Harrelson's dad. No, he spoke with Woody Harrelson about his father, saying something like, "Yeah, like your father was, like JFK assassin, right? Like, what's that about?" And he said something like Harrelson broke down crying, like, "Yeah, like my dad was, there's that."
Well, he's definitely of the same ilk of Robert Booth Nichols, Steven Seagal's buddy, who was in Under Siege. And he's of that same kind of network, right? Whether or not he was at the JFK scene, he's definitely of that same kind of network as Booth was as well. Wow. And that's Harrelson went to prison for murdering this fella. He was the only sitting federal judge murdered since, I think, 1850. And it was Judge John Wood in San Antonio, Texas, May 29th, 1979. So
this is baby daddy.
Yeah, so, Woody and Matthew McConaughey, they're both, adults by that point in time. But yeah, their father apparently was a lifelong assassin.
Wow. And his sons are big Hollywood superstars. So, no biggie.
Right? That's what I'm saying, dude. How weird is that? Then they both star in True Detective, right? Come on, man.
I heard the story. I think I was more surprised. Like, I could believe that they're related. It's just like you guys had no fucking clue until now.
Exactly. I know that's bullshit because McConaughey's mother even says she's known the entire time. That's what I'm saying. I don't buy any of this shit. Exactly.
Well, yeah.
And McConaughey's older brother looks exactly like Woody Harrelson. Rooster McConaughey looks more like Woody than he does Matthew McConaughey.
Rooster.
It's quite a name, right?
Rooster. Where's Rooster?
So we see these things that still plague us, these Iran-Contra scandals. I mean, I know this was highlighted in the Netflix documentary on Casolaro and the Octopus and Promise, but this is Robert Booth Nichols. He's faked his death a couple times, right? And apparently he may or may not be dead now, but previous to that, he at least faked his death a couple times. And who does that remind you of, Nick?
Sith
Lord himself, right?
Yeah. Oh yeah, that was another thing, Charles. I don't know if they a bunch of them have all faked their death or tried to, and this and that. It's a whole fuck story with those people.
Wow.
Right.
And it's like you even start getting confused, like who's who, because it's they're claiming like they're this one day, that the other day. It's just
yeah. And those 1-2 from the same private school that Bill Gates went to in Seattle, and the Taft fellow who was involved, I believe the Taft fellow who was involved in the grunge scene also went to that same private school. Dudley Taft. He was not a major figure, but he was a figure in the grunge scene. Those two that went there, man, those Zizians, they look like the same person, dude. Remember we couldn't figure out the difference between those two?
Wow.
Yes, there was ones that I said, yo, like not for nothing, these two almost look like they could be the same person.
Yeah. I think that's intentional, right?
Probably. It was very confusing.
Yeah. Yeah, so we're not talking about dumb folks. These are AI folks, the Zizian transpocalypse, Silicon Valley based AI focused rationalist vegan homicidal death cult. These folks are smart, well financed. They have they're from wealthy backgrounds. Again, one of them attended the same private school in Seattle as Bill Gates. And Bill Gates, for example, his father had a Planned Parenthood. His mother's father, so his maternal grandfather, was the head of the Federal Reserve in Seattle, I believe, at one point. These are the people that make decisions, and these are the people that aren't connected, I think, to the Society of the Cincinnati, but may have allegiances with factions of that anti-liberty regard, if you ask me. But nonetheless, there are powerful agents that don't necessarily fall within that same structure, but clearly impact our world, right? I mean, Bill Gates. I mean, get the fuck out of here. That dude's everywhere.
Yeah, he's a destroyer.
Right.
top level destroyer with family connections of destroyers, with just a trail of destruction behind them, whether eugenics or whether like global control through the technocracy, like early technocracy, you know, IBM days, all that. It's all just like linked up, and it's all just
Isn't that weird? IBM just gives Bill Gates their software, and he just happens to have this huge computer lab at the University of Washington where his mother works at, in which to access all these computers at a time when no one else has access to it, and suddenly has this baseline software in which to build an operating system that IBM just graciously awarded him, you know, I believe free of charge.
Yeah. There it is. Coincidental, bro.
Yeah, totally normal. Nothing to see here. So I think, you know, I really like these ideas that things are written in film, right? But we can start bringing this thing to a close here. I appreciate both your gents' times this evening, but I think one topic, at least I'll pass it around for everyone to have a closing statements and a topic that's imposed on their brain holes this evening. But one topic, as always, is the nature of ideas being perpetrated in society largely through film, right, and stuff like that, right? And the idea that there's something Nick and I cover a lot on Operation GCD Live. We're doing a monthly occult and esoteric film review on different films, and you know, I think there's a lot to be said about some of these ideas, both negative and positive, that push through works of fiction. And it's not just films; it used to go on through books, and you know, the CIA is the OSS and the CIA are founded by literature graduates from Yale and Harvard and whatnot. So these aren't people; these, you know, these are the people that write these kind of stories, right? You know, so on that note, and on that note of Bill Gates, are you fellas familiar with the film, the comedy masterpiece from, I believe, 1998, Dead Man on Campus?
I'm not. No,
I did not see it. I remember when it came out.
Oh my God, this movie! I think it was MTV Films' first production, and it was, I mean, probably accidentally, but it was fucking hilarious. And, you know, one of the things in here that they wrote into here, the pretense is, if they're both of them are failing out of school, they're college roommates, they hate each other, failing out of school. Zach from Saved by the Bell and the fellow from the werewolf movie, Werewolf in Paris. They're failing out of college, and you know, they find out if their roommate commits suicide, that they get straight A's for the rest of the year and they won't get kicked out. So they keep trying to recruit suicidal roommates of varying natures and capacities on campus through various failed, you know, plots and missions in which to accomplish this goal. They at one point recruit this kind of schizo dude, right, who says Bill Gates. So they like infiltrate a suicide hotline to meet this guy, you know, whatever, and you know, work their way into his life. He thinks Bill Gates had copied his brain when he fell asleep in an airport, and now he's trying to take over the world and get the rest of the dude's brain or something like that. But he starts making all of these statements about how Bill Gates runs the world and he's this evil man, et cetera, et cetera. And it kind of becomes this joke throughout the film, because you'll see the guy pop up a couple scenes later screaming about shit, you know. And I'm like, man, looking back, I'm like, man, whoever wrote that film, you know, put that stuff in there, they knew a lot about Bill Gates in 1997, 98 when no one else did.
Wow.
You know,
yeah, films, cinema, movies, it's all just, it's some symbolism. And what is occult but hidden? Okay, and these people speak through symbols. They speak through images, pictures, old signs. Okay, they're all bound by these images, because it speaks on a psychological level. It's not just a thing of, oh, look, I see a picture of a bird, so this must be a birdhouse. It's, what does that bird represent? A bird represents the spirit, freedom, blah, 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 whatever you associate with it. And it becomes a symbolic thing that speaks volumes, literally. So that's where you have stuff like this movie. I mentioned The Matrix before. You can apply that to taxes. You can apply that to your government. You can apply that to oppression, whatever. But the point is there. Okay? All these movies, and then, you go like Back to the Future. Like, I know people really like go deep into that movie. And that shit just
you ain't kidding.
Yeah. So the Occult Rejects did.
Yeah, we just did. And I've been getting lots of feedback with folks going even deeper. That's great stuff. No, that's a very deep film. That's a great example.
Yeah, it's all around us, man. Exactly, it's there. It's around us.
No, I like the way you just put it, though, Charles.
Yeah, these people are well equipped. They've been doing this for centuries. These are old orders, families. It's like, it's a tight business. If we think like this isn't a controlled thing, we're way behind the curve, you know.
Right. No, I like how you say it applies. These same concepts apply across the spectrum of our, our universe here, right?
I want to ask. Mind if I just
please,
ask? I know you're wrapping it up, but I do want to ask Charles.
No, take your time.
Do you think there might be actually a choreographed effort like that amongst the conspiracy community?
Ooh.
Is that the one only place that we're safe?
Right.
Oh boy, in the conspiracy world, no, the only place we're safe is in here. That's where we're safe, because this is the one thing that's truly there. I mean, you have alt media, right? Dan Bongino on Rumble, he's alt media. Steven Crowder, he's alt media. It's like, really, these people are alt media. Okay, so when people start waking up or they start getting a taste for truth, because babies drink milk, they don't eat meat. You have to level up to meat. So when you start with milk, they'll give you, oh, here's Joe Rogan to talk about, DMT. Here's Joe Rogan to talk about waking up. Oh, and here's Neil deGrasse Tyson, a Freemason, to help you understand your worldview, right? And you. That's the thing. So there's no safety in any of these things. The safety is in discernment. And when you discern, you start seeing what's real and what isn't. But the landmines are everywhere, man. It's everywhere. It's a battle for you. Your mind is the thing. When they have your mind, they become your God. When you have your mind, they don't have your mind. Whatever has your mind has your mind. So you need to have your mind. Your family needs to have your mind. God, whatever, your creator, we all have a creator. Your creator needs to have your mind. The good, love, positivity, the things that help us grow, not the things that they give us, which is hate. It's always hate. It's anger, jealousy, emotions, nothing but emotions. There's no logic because they don't want you thinking logically,
That's true. That's true. That's a good, and it's kind of back to that signal to noise ratio, right? When you got all this noise to that signal, you can't really think logically or sift through the nonsense.
Mm-hmm.
You know what? Let's say, just for whatever, if we can all agree that maybe for the most part, QAnon might have been bullshit. Let's just say it is.
You mean you don't trust the plan, sir? Are you telling me there's no plan?
If that stuff is not real, do you know what kind of alternate reality that people believe in it are living?
That's a great example. That's a great example of going out in public and you're
a different fucking world that exists.
Yeah, dude.
It's a great example.
That's fucking scary.
That's so true. Speaking of narrative and like bubbles, that's a whole different bubble, dude. That's a whole different thing.
Right.
Think about the Zizians. They live in their own bubble.
You ain't kidding.
Like
that's even a smaller one, for real.
Small but powerful. But how crazy is that, though?
I wouldn't be surprised if some of them trust the plan, but you know what I mean?
Trust the Ziz.
Trust the Ziz.
No, I will wrap this up here, and by all means, take your all's time to any closing summary statements on our conversation, anything you want to plug. But I appreciate both your old gents' conversation, your time, and Charles. I think hopefully, I think my attempt was to take a kind of a tour of the topics you've covered thus far within your Eyes and Ears podcast, and I've caught a couple of your AM Wake Up shows there, so I'm not exactly as familiar with the topics of conversation as far as the routine topics go, but hopefully we touched a lot on the stuff you talk about there tonight. I feel like much like when you have an interesting perspective on a lot of things, and I certainly appreciate some again, that's why I like having a podcast and discussing things, and I think that's a little bit what Nick and I were aiming here on Fridays, is just kind of not really having a plan or an itinerary necessarily on these detours of folks' shows and their interests, but exchanging these ideas of these varying perspectives that we don't necessarily get.
Very, very important. It's kind of like going back to fish. This is like a fish show. Like a lot of my shows, it's not planned. It's like I might have a general idea, but it's like what makes the show is the discussions. It's like we start with one thing, but by the end, it's like the natural flow of things takes us in all different directions. And that's where it's at. That's how you kind of get to know somebody. You ask questions, you get their opinions, you kind of bounce off of each other. And then the story builds itself. So you might come, to the table with 4 stories, and then that turns to like 20 different things because of how everything floats. So I love that. I think that's awesome.
That's a great way to put it. We're a jam band. That's a great way to put it. We're a jam band.
Exactly. Jam band flow. Yeah.
That's
No, I've been JJ. I appreciate y'all having me over, man.
Yes.
Exactly. It was cool having you and Heidi on. Nick, nice meeting you on the show, man.
yeah.
And
Yeah,
I
of
think
course.
what y'all do is great. I think these discussions are awesome. Anything occult, anything esoteric, count me in. I love it. And
Awesome.
yeah,
It's good
I
to know.
love this.
No,
This is awesome.
We'll definitely have to link up again in the future for some more shows here, Charles. I definitely enjoy your outlook, and I would be remiss if I didn't ask you to share some of your military experience, because again, I salute you as a fellow U.S. Air Force veteran specifically, but generally as a military veteran, you know. So,
Appreciate it, man. Yeah.
do appreciate your time and again your insight. But what have you served? I believe 6 years. You said in the medical
I did.
admin.
Yeah, so I did
Oh, go ahead.
13 to 21, so 8 years. I did 8 years.
There we go.
I was medical on the medical field. Very eye-opening for what it was. Just stationed in a small clinic down south, and then I moved to the capital. So just kind of going from a small operation to like the district operation. So that was my thing. But yeah, always trying to just use my eyes and ears, you know, and always like using rationality, no matter what it is. And like I said, reading AFIs was the thing. Reading Air Force regulations, Air Force instructions, like that was the thing.
Right.
So it's kind of like knowing the rules.
I don't miss that term, Charles. AFIs.
AFI-555. No,
Right.
no.
Yeah.
None of those days. Those days are behind me for sure. But yeah, bro, that's where it was. 8 years, Air Force medical. That's me. Yeah.
And you were,
Yeah,
that's awesome. You were
was a good
stationed.
show. This was awesome. A lot of fun. These guys definitely brought it for sure.
And where were you
chat.
stationed,
Shout out
Charles?
to the chat.
Yeah, chats are great.
Oh yeah, chat's been great. No, for sure. I appreciate the chat. Where were your assignments?
It was south. I was in North Carolina for a good majority, and then over at the
Seymour
capital.
Johnson.
Seymour Johnson, North Carolina.
What an awful
Small
name
Seymour.
for a base, right?
Seymour Johnson. Have you ever seen Seymour Johnson?
Right. Sounds like something Bart Simpson would say to the Moe's Tavern, right, on The Simpsons.
Exactly.
Yeah. No, it's great stuff, and I'm sure you had some eye-opening experiences in your time there. I'm sure.
Yeah, man, a lot of eye-opening, a lot of learned a lot about myself through the time. That's for sure. Fish loves it. Yeah, yeah.
That's great stuff, and folks can find. What's that? Go ahead.
We got some fans in the crowd. Okay, very cool.
Seems like it, right?
Oh, I would think so.
Grateful Dogs first show was in April of '93. It sounds like they're a Fish fan.
Ooh, damn.
I saw them, I think, once at a Further Festival in Pennsylvania a long time.
Oh, Further Festival. Okay, I went to one of those in the '90s.
Yeah, it was at Hershey
Bob
Park.
Weir Festival.
Wow.
Yeah,
right. That was a great.
Counting Crows
great
actually there too. Yeah.
Counting Crows. I like the Counting Crows.
And Don Henley. Don Henley was there. I was like, oh, what the fuck?
Shit.
The lineup was wild. Yeah.
Was this Further Fest '95?
Further Fest. Yeah, that's what it sounds like.
That's what I said. Yeah, Further Fest in Pennsylvania, Hershey Park.
Was it '95? It sounds like the '95 lineup.
Probably.
I would think I was.
It could be.
I think I was at that lineup.
The Crows, the Crows were there. Just different bands, all that. Yeah.
Yeah, Mickey Hart and Planet Drum was there. It was the first time I ever heard them.
There you go. Yeah, Rat Dog.
I
Bob Weir's band, Rat Dog.
smoked weed in a few months, and I smoked right before his band came on, and I was like, "Yo, what the fuck is this?" I never heard of it. It was just like I was stuck in my chair. I don't even think that was a chair. I think it was like on the grass or whatever. But I was just like, "Yo, this shit is fucking intense."
So it sounds like it was '96. Thank you, Lucy Rose. Yeah, so that was the lineup there. I remember seeing the Counting Crows, dude. They came back later to Cincinnati the next year by themselves. I remember seeing them again.
Wow,
this is fucking crazy. So
it was at Hershey Park? No, I saw the lineup at Cincinnati when they came through there on the festival circuit.
Crazy.
Grateful Dog.
Yeah, no, but I saw that same lineup though. That was a good year.
Yeah, a lot of fans in the crowd. Very cool. I like this shit. And Wake Up is the opposite of this. There's a lot of haters towards the jam bands. But y'all, I like this. I like this. I fuck with this.
I never got big into Fish so much, but I do like the jam bands. I'd say I skipped Fish and went right to OAR.
Mm-hmm.
Was a huge, still am a huge OAR fan.
Yeah.
I was stationed in DC for 6 years, so I got to see them a lot there because they're from Rockville, Maryland, and they went to school in Ohio State. So I kind of got a lot of OAR in my life from Ohio to DC.
I lived in Rockville. That's where I was when I was over in the capital. Shout outs to
Okay,
shout outs
yeah.
to the Civic Center over in Rockville. Love that place.
Yo, did you ever hear Hot Tuna?
Yeah,
Oh man, I remember that
I
band.
saw them play like Stony Brook a few times.
that's
Holy shit, okay.
Jorma, like old Jefferson Airplane.
Yeah, I was like, holy shit.
Yeah, that's
Dope,
old
that's
stuff
cool.
right there. I haven't heard that name in a while.
Yeah. I know a
No,
lot of
well,
them.
if folks looking for your podcast there and the AM Wake Up stuff there, Charles, I make sure it's in the show notes. Is there any other plugs before we pass it over to Nick here for some closing statements?
Yeah, real quick. Yes, Monday mornings, 10 a.m. Eastern, 7 a.m. Western. You can Pacific, I should say. I'm on Rumble with Steve Poikin and AM Wake Up. I'm trying. So, and then besides that, there's my show, of course, Eyes and Ears. You can find me on Rumble as well. You can follow me, Eyes and Ears, on X, Twitter, whatever you want to call it. My handle is under my name. So yeah, follow me there. Check me out. That's the thing. Rumble, AM Wake Up, Rumble, Eyes and Ears, and X, Eyes and Ears.
Nice. Well, I think you got a lot of folks, some new subscribers here tonight, Charles. I'm glad to see it.
Yeah, follow me there, folks. Follow me on X and all that.
All right. Well, I appreciate that, sir, and I appreciate you sharing some of your service time there with stories of that. And Nick, as always, sir, I appreciate you co-hosting Fridays with me. You got any closing statements on tonight's activities and perhaps some future activities for Occult Rejects?
I'll say future activities. Yeah, we do have. Again, I think I mentioned we have Laurel Canyon with Julia and Colby coming out next week. A show in Gematria.
Yep.
That weekend, then we also got Virginia Guffrey and Ryder Lee show. Yeah, that's interesting.
That's a good one.
Yeah, I thought that is good. I am working on Jacob Bohm still. I'm almost done with that. That'll be a solo show that'll be dropping in a few weeks eventually too. But yeah, I had a good time. Thank you. It was great to meet you, Charles. I had heard good things about you from JJ and Heidi. So
it's awesome. Likewise, man.
Personally meet you. So yeah, man, it was a good time, a good chat. I think we, again, I just thought it was a good discussion. I think we all kind of like saw the things, saw everything from the same perspective, different ways. True. At the same time. Pretty weird. Yeah. So check out the Occult Rejects. It's BitChute, Rumble, YouTube, and all major podcasts. And if you can, I'm just trying to push it, trying to remember to mention this. If you have any weird or paranormal stories, please send them over to Headless. Headless Giant Podcast, I think, at gmail.com. I could be wrong. I should probably know if I'm going to promote it. But yeah, if you got any crazy stories, hit up Headless, let him know, write him some stuff, or see if you can come on the show for his headless mailbag. There we go. Thank you.
No, I appreciate it, Nick. Thank you, sir. Again, I think we've had a wonderful conversation here. Appreciate your gents' time and conversation and insight for sure. I certainly enjoy these roundtable discussions and sharing these ideas and gaining some new insights. And if folks want to gain some new insight on the haunted doll that's cursed me since circa August of 2012, highly recommend to check out Operation GCD Patreon Sundays, 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Times, and that'll be in the show notes with that Patreon link. And then the subsequent Sunday, the transgendered homicidal maniac you saw dancing with the Nirvana smiley face t-shirt in the swamps of Martha's Vineyard, not far from where Barack Obama's chef died. Well, that fella, Buffalo Jared Revisa, he once insisted I hire him as my PR rep and later stalked me to that regard, and would later take on employment as somebody else's PR rep and then murder that individual before going on a multi-state stabbing spree and putting on a McDonald's in the process. But that'll be the subsequent week. That'll be 2 weeks. So I highly recommend folks check that out. And if I may close with this one final thought on these movies by sharing a clip from the film Dead Man on Campus. I will these are my final thoughts on Bill Gates and some of our discussion this evening here, gents.
Nice.
Oh, we need some sound.
So go away.
Oh, let me in.
Before they see me. Before who sees you?
I think I'm being followed.
You are being followed.
Oh, God. Come on.
What's going on? Are you in some kind of trouble?
Listen, Kurt Cobain didn't kill himself. You understand? He's not even dead. He and Vince Foster are living near Mount St. Helens.
You're kidding. Why?
It's not their idea. They're being blackmailed into it. But the man responsible's so rich, so powerful, he'll stop at nothing to make sure this information stays suppressed.
What's his name?
I can't tell you that. Bill Gates.
Bill Gates.
What does he want from
Those guys were ahead of their times in 1998 is all I'm saying. I don't know about
Wow.
Kurt Cobain and Vince Foster. I'm just saying Bill Gates being this arch overlord, right? So thought that was funny.
Yeah, that was.
No, I appreciate both your gents' time. And again, any last and final statements before we call her in?
Nope.
All right.
Peace and love to everybody. Stay positive. Enjoy life. Be good.
So there you go. That's a good way to end it there, Charles. I appreciate it, sir. And folks of the interwebs, appreciate your time. We'll see you next time.
Well, that's it. That's the show here, folks. So the next time you're out on the town, visiting your local watering holes, or perhaps just meandering around, and you hear the unmistakable sounds of metal clanking, and you spot signs of a disturbance, but check your six. Look in that garbage can, 'cause you never can tell. The GCDs may be loose in your town.